Ladies and gentlemen, it is Thursday, January 8th, 2026. Here's what's coming up on the Owen Report today. All right, we're still dealing with the fallout and the aftermath of yesterday's fatal shooting of an American mother who was likely instructed to be out there to obstruct these ICE operations. We still need some details, but the fallout continues. We've had a lot of statements from multiple members of the Trump administration. Most of a White House press address was dedicated to this today. Of course, we see the agents of the Trump administration on social media being activated to run cover. And the left is actually not as extreme as you'd think they would be in response to this, but there was a large protest in Minneapolis last night. There are still protesters out in Minnesota today. The National Guard has been called, and then we're going to get into some more specific details as far as what the Trump administration is saying. And there's some things that they're saying that are, I'd say, questionable. I'd say they're saying some questionable things. Let's just leave it at that. So we've got all of that. We're going to play a lot of these statements. We're going to play a lot of the videos, Caroline Leavitt, J.D. Vance, and more. Now, this is kind of the new development. This just happened yesterday. The fraud situation, the fraud story is still getting a lot of airtime. They're still focused, of course, on what's going on in Minnesota with the Somali fraud. But now you have, because I'm in Texas, you have all of these people that are exposing fraud in Texas, which is way greater scale than Minnesota. The fraud in Texas, a much bigger scale than Minnesota, but nobody's talking about it. And they're saying, well, why aren't my reports getting 10 million views? I'm exposing fraud in Texas 10 times the size as that in Minnesota. Why doesn't anybody care about this? That, my friend, is the right question. But okay, we've got statements from the White House today on the fraud. You've got statements from Scott Bessent today on the fraud. Now, what's interesting is we hear about this. Yet again, they're making claims that there are investigations happening and that people will go to jail for this. So if they don't deliver here, folks, I just don't know where the bitter clingers go. I don't know where the MAGA bitter clingers go. Are they really going to be willing to make excuses here? We've seen them make excuse after excuse after excuse for this Trump administration. The Epstein files, the Iran strikes, the Doge shutdown, the Venezuela capture of Maduro, all of this stuff, they make excuses. They say, this is America first. This is MAGA. So they've been running cover. They've been playing their role in the propaganda wars. But what if they don't arrest anybody for fraud? What if they don't go after the Somalis in Minnesota? What if they don't get the deportations? How are they going to cover that? How are they going to excuse that? We may find out soon if they don't do it. So we'll keep an eye on the situation in Minnesota. We got the big fraud coverage, and then we've got some geopolitical developments in the Middle East today. The peace deal, folks, it's not going well. It's not going well. And Netanyahu is back. How about that? Go figure. Netanyahu is back. And he's doing interviews in American media, speaking English, once again, propagandizing the American people. Because we just can't get enough of Netanyahu. We just can't get enough of Netanyahu. We can't get enough of Israel. We need more of it. That's what everybody's aching for, is more Israel and more Netanyahu. Yes, that's what we want. So we got some of those clips too. I'm hoping I can move through the news at a pretty rapid pace today because I'd like to take calls on all of this. That's what's coming up on today's Owen Report.
This news update was brought to you by OwenSchroyer.store, the official site for Owen Report merchandise.
All right, guys, are you filtering your water? Are you doing it yet? By the way, we do have some news on fluoride today, in case you didn't see the news on fluoride. RFK Jr. going after the fluoride. I just love my CovePure water filter. I love it. There's no other way to put it. Take your water filtration to the future with me and with the CovePure CP16 water filter. Let me tell you why I love this water filter. If I want hot water for tea or instant coffee, all it takes is one press of the button. If I want ice cold water because I just want to have a drink of ice cold water, all it takes is one push of a button. That's right. The CovePure water filter can give you ice cold water, or it can give you scalding hot water with one push of the button. Of course, it can give you room temperature water. In fact, there's actually a gauge on there. You can decide what temperature you want your water. You've never seen or heard of such a water filtration system until the CovePure water filtration system. I also like the fact that it has an easily detachable pitcher that automatically fills itself. It fills itself. You use it, you put it back, it refills itself. I like the fact that it has a reverse osmosis filtration system built in, which is the number one water filtration system. But the problem with reverse osmosis is that it doesn't realkalize the water. So it kind of dealkalizes the water. The CovePure water filter realkalizes the water. I'm telling you, folks, bring your water filtration to the future with me. Bring your kitchen to the future with CovePure CP16. And you may think I'm exaggerating about how great this is. You may think I'm exaggerating about the quality of the water and the taste and everything else. Try it for yourself. Have some friends over, have some family over. Give them a glass of ice cold water from your new CovePure water system, and you'll see. You'll see. They will be thrilled. They will notice the difference in the taste with just one glass of ice cold water from your CovePure system. Go to covepure.com/Owen to take your water filtration to the future with me and with CovePure.
On the cutting edge of news and analysis, the Owen Report with Owen Schroyer.
All right, guys, it's been a busy day. My phone hasn't stopped blowing up with people wanting comments or questions or commentary on the ICE shooting yesterday. I've already done 3 shows today. 2 are already out there, and then 1 is going to be aired later on the Stu Peters Network later tonight after I'm off. I think his show goes on at 7. Just finished up an interview with him. Did a video on why Pam Bondi is to blame for a lot of this. Did a show earlier today. It's been a busy day. And so this story has obviously, it's got a lot of attention, rightfully so. And I think it's really, today, I think it's exposing the right more so than the left. And I just call it as I see it, folks. And I know that this is not the perfect parallel. I'm not equating these two events as equal or as the same. But I do think this is a good place to kind of get a mindset of what happened yesterday and then going back to January 6th and looking at Ashley Babbitt. Because Renee Good is basically now the left-wing Ashley Babbitt. Killed by a law enforcement officer, killed during a protest that likely Democrats told her to be at, just like Ashley Babbitt was told by Republicans or by Trump to be at the Capitol. So again, I'm not saying these two things are equal. Don't get too much in a huff here. I'm not saying these two things are parallel and equal, but I'm saying that just think about it from that aspect. Think about it from that aspect. Two American women at a political protest, and they are unarmed and they get killed. I'm not saying that Renee Good was in the right. I stated my piece very clearly on that yesterday. I'm not here to defend her actions. There's plenty of people out there defending the actions of the ICE agent, so I don't need to do that either. I stated my piece on that. I'm just trying to give you a mindset and understanding of what this is and where it's going from here. Renee Good is now the left-wing Ashley Babbitt. And you might be doing it right now. Oh, I'm crazy, or that's a leftist thing and all this stuff. Hey, you know what? That's fine. I understand that that's going to be a response, a criticism of this take. But folks, it's a good mindset to have. It's a good mindset to have because it's going to be very parallel as far as the response is concerned. If this officer walks like Officer Byrd walked, how do you think the left is going to feel about that? They're going to feel the exact same way that you feel about Officer Byrd walking after killing Ashley Babbitt. And you can say Renee Good deserved it. Well, guess what? The left said that Ashley Babbitt deserved it. So I'm not telling you what to think. I'm not saying these two things are perfectly equal. I'm just trying to give you a better mindset and a better understanding of where this is going. And maybe, yes, maybe people on the right need to pump the brakes a little bit here. And maybe the Trump administration coming out in such a heavy defense of the ICE agent is not really the best look right now. But I understand why they're doing it. They feel implicated, to a certain degree. So I understand why they feel the need to defend this ICE agent. And okay, I don't expect anything different. But this is not a good look, folks. It's just not. And you can be in total defense of the ICE agent, and that's fine with me. And you can be totally against this woman and the left sending all their protesters out there. I'm not arguing with you. The problem that people on the right are having today, aside from the cult mentality, it seems that they've forgotten that there's other people in the world. It seems that they have forgotten that there's people that look at the world differently, see the world differently, believe different things than they do. And while we can disagree with that and we can think that they're crazy and maybe we're right and they're wrong, these people still exist. You still have to share a country with these people. And these people still vote, by the way. And I think that it's that mindset that's starting to catch up with the Trump administration, and they're saying, oh, golly gee, we still have to win the midterms. And it's like, yeah, you forgot, didn't you? So if you are going to just castigate the left and just say, be gone, we don't care about you, okay. But now you've done the same thing to a lot of your supporters. Now you've done the same thing to a lot of the Trump base. So this arrogance, this cult mindset, this hubris, this invincible, this idea that you're invincible is starting to catch up with you. And you forget that there are people out there that think differently than you, vote differently than you, feel differently than you. These people exist. And so I guess they just figure, oh, screw this lady. You know, the ICE agent is the best. She's totally at fault. Run them all over. Well, where do you go now? Where do you go? What if this happens again? What if this happens a third time? What if it's a situation that is a little more innocent? What if it's a kid? So that's why I'm sitting here saying Pam Bondi is the problem, because she's not getting rid of this left-wing extremist organization funding that puts these people out in the streets that has now gotten deadly. That's where this originates. That's where this needs to stop. And Pam Bondi is not doing it. All right. I don't want to monologue too long. So let me just stop right there and let me get into the actual news here. Let's just stop that before we get too far and go into the news headlines. This is not a good look. FBI shuts down Minnesota's investigation into ICE shooting and blocks access to evidence. Yikes. Now, folks, again, you have to, in order to maintain a consistent worldview and in order to maintain logical consistency, you have to be able to look at the other side. You have to be able to hold a reverse image and see if it still sticks. That's why I bring up the Ashley Babbitt shooting. But put that aside for a second. If this was the Biden FBI, if this was Biden ICE, if this was Biden DOJ, and a right-winger was shot at a protest, how would you feel about this? If the investigation into Ashley Babbitt was taken over by Biden's FBI, how would you feel about that? Of course, you wouldn't like that. So if logic cannot be applied universally, it's propaganda. This is not a good look. And even if you want to say, and I'll even give you the room to believe that this is the case. Even if you want to say, but Owen, that's not fair because we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. Okay, fine. But that's how they feel about you. That's how they feel about you. And now, how does this look? A woman gets shot and you're like, whatever. A woman gets killed and Trump's FBI is taking over the investigation. Even if you want to support all of this and say that it's all good, you have to at least be willing to accept that it's a bad look. At the very least, you have to accept that this is a bad look. An ICE agent shooting a woman in the head and then leaving the scene of the crime or the shooting, by the way, he left the scene. That's not going to be good. And so I hate to say this, but the right is now becoming just as extremist as the left. It's obviously a different political flavor. It's a different political taste. It's a different political viewpoint. But it's the same crap. It's the same extremism that turned so many people off of liberal politics that is now going to turn so many people off of right-wing politics. It's the same callous nature. It's the same extremist nature. It's the same commitment to the party no matter what happens. It's a major turnoff. And if the shoe were on the other foot, Republicans would be pissed. If the shoe were on the other foot, Trump supporters would be pissed. If the shoe were on the other foot, the right wing would be outraged. And that's not a conspiracy theory. We already saw it with Ashley Babbitt. So you can say one side is more justified than the other. Fine. But let's at least look at both sides of this thing and let's try to apply logic equally here. And if the FBI is coming down to shut down this investigation in Minnesota, folks, that's a bad sign. And maybe that's because they don't trust the state of Minnesota. Maybe that's because they have to do everything they can to try to protect this ICE agent and the administration from the backlash. But if the shoe is on the other foot and Democrats were doing this, you know damn well you know damn well the right wing would be outraged. And we know that because we saw what happened with Ashley Babbitt. And rightfully so, by the way. Kristi Noem threatens to send more ICE agents to Minneapolis as protests grow. Well, this is going to be interesting. Because now Tim Walz is saying he's going to activate the Minnesota National Guard to stand up against ICE. So how is that going to look? And why is ICE now a reactionary wing of Homeland Security when they're supposed to be doing deportations? This whole thing is falling apart, guys. This whole thing is coming unhinged. And where is Pam Bondi? Where is Pam Bondi? You know, you can sit here and criticize Steve Witkoff if you don't like some of the things he's doing, but at least he's competent. At least you can see that the guy is competent. Same thing with Scott Bessent. You can not like Scott Bessent for whatever reason. The guy is clearly competent. When things need to get done, Steve Witkoff gets them done. Whether you like the way he does it or not, he gets things done. Same with Scott Bessent. Maybe you don't like Scott Bessent's background and George Soros and everything else. If something needs to be done or something needs to be communicated or some numbers need to be delivered, Scott Bessent does the job. These are competent men. Pam Bondi is an incompetent boob at this point. She is totally incompetent. She is way in over her head. She hasn't delivered on anything. And now here we are with a dead American woman, and Pam Bondi has nothing to offer. Here we are with more leftist protests in the streets, and Pam Bondi is clueless. She's done nothing to shut this down. She's done nothing to curtail this. She's done nothing to expose the organizing networks, the fundraising networks. Zero, zilch, nada. This was all supposed to be shut down. And now they're back in the streets and bigger than ever. And now they have a cause to get behind. And where is Pam Bondi? And so I guess in the vacuum of Pam Bondi's absence, Kristi Noem and ICE have to step in. Pam Bondi is now a liability. Pam Bondi is now a negative impact on this administration. It is a total and unmitigated disaster, Pam Bondi as Attorney General. So I'm like, how is Trump not sick of this? And the only conclusion I can reach, and look, people want to make crass sexual jokes about it. I don't. Who knows at this point? You try to make sense of the nonsensical. I guess you end up talking about everything, I think Trump keeps Pam Bondi around because she is so inept. I think Trump keeps Pam Bondi around because she is so incompetent that people can just blame her for everything when stuff goes wrong. And Trump knows that she's going to get a lot of this blame. And Trump is maybe acutely aware that even the biggest Trump supporters, even the MAGA sheeple and sycophants are sick of Pam Bondi. So it's like Pam Bondi has turned into like this personal hedge of protection against Trump receiving criticism. I can't think of any other reason why Pam Bondi is still there. So throw out the Monica Lewinsky angle. I think Trump is keeping her around as a buffer of criticism aimed at him, instead being directed at Bondi. That is the only reason I can think that she's still around. Which, by the way, that's not very good, is it? We're keeping an incompetent attorney general around to protect the president. She can't do a job, but now her job is to just take heat off of Donald Trump. Pam Bondi is an unmitigated disaster. And as long as she's around as Attorney General, this thing is only going to get worse every single day. She is awful at her job. No, She's not even awful. She's not even present. She can't even be considered bad. She's not even there. There is no performance review because there is no performance. Now they're canceling classes. Minneapolis public schools cancel class January 8th today and January 9th tomorrow after ICE shooting. Now, why would they be doing this? The Minneapolis public schools are canceling classes Thursday and Friday. There will be no e-learning. Officials say they are making the move out of an abundance of caution after the day's incidents around the city. Well, we're talking about one incident of an ICE agent fatally shooting a woman. Now, folks, you understand what this is? Why would Minneapolis liberals be canceling school? Because they're trying to make this a bigger story. In fact, let's do this. How many mass shootings do you think, or how many shootings do you think happened in Minneapolis, St. Paul last weekend? Because no school was canceled. Let's see here. Oh, well, okay. Of course, everything that pops up in a search engine is the ICE shooting. So I'm going to have to do a specific search here, guys. Give me a second. So we'll do it like this. Oh. Let's see. In Minneapolis, a series of shootings and the grim realities of a tough summer. Oh, there was a shooting at a Catholic high school, killing one person, injuring 6 others. Did you hear about that? That was last year. Shooting on August 27th. Let's see. 13 people hurt in 2 mass shootings at Minneapolis homeless encampments on the same day. That was September of last year. Was any class canceled for this? No. So why are they canceling class today? Because the liberals are trying to make this a bigger deal. The liberals want everybody to know. They want to make sure that every single person in Minneapolis from the age of 1 to 101 knows that an ICE agent shot and killed a woman yesterday. So they're trying everything possible to make this a bigger story, make this a bigger issue, and draw more people out to protest and clash in the streets. They've never done this before. They didn't do it after mass shootings. They didn't do it after shooting at a Catholic church. They didn't do it after shootings every weekend in the Twin Cities. None of that ever happens. But today they're canceling school for 2 days in areas and communities that have nothing to do with this yesterday, and they're canceling it all because they want to make this as big of a case as possible. They want as many people as possible to know about this. That's why they're doing it. J.D. Vance had a lot to say. He was at the White House press conference today. We'll have some clips. J.D. Vance says shooting of brainwashed Minneapolis woman was a tragedy of her own making. You know, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. But it's just not the time. I'm sorry. It's just not the time. This is not helping anything. It's just not. But this is them running cover for the ICE officer. That's what it is. It's them running cover for the ICE officer. It's them running cover for their ICE operations. But it just comes off as callous. Even though it's true, I can't deny it. I'm not denying that it's true. But she shouldn't have been out there. She shouldn't have received the text or the email or whatever notification came down to let her know that there were ICE operations in that neighborhood that day so that she could be out there and protesting. Pam Bondi was supposed to shut that down, and she didn't. And the messaging here is just off, and it's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help anybody. And they're saying, again, there's a lot of details that need to emerge, but it's obvious that the administration is trying to cover this up as quickly as possible. They're saying she was shot in the head 3 times. So that means every shot hit her in the head. We'll see if that turns out to be true or not. They're also saying that this ICE officer has been hit by cars multiple times. And I guess the purpose of that is to point out how dangerous the job is, to point out how unhinged some of these protests are and the groups that are leading them out there into the streets, fundraising it, organizing it. Probably all true, probably all fair, but I'm not sure if that's really a good defense. They're saying he's been hit by a car twice. They have shown one video. The one video that I saw is a much worse incident. The car is going much faster. It looks a lot more dangerous. And he never fired a shot. I'm not sure if that's really a good defense right now. I don't think, folks, like I said yesterday, I don't think anybody's thinking in this administration. I don't think anybody is thinking. I think it's all reaction. At this point, I think it's all reaction, and it's all just make a decision right now, and we'll deal with it tomorrow. I don't think they thought this one through. Why come out in less than 24 hours and blame it on her? Why come out in less than 24 hours and say, hey, he's been hit before? Tell me what good that does. No pun intended. Tell me what good this does. It makes you look callous, which is going to cause more protests. And now for the agent that you're trying to defend here to say, hey, well, he's been hit before. Okay, he's been hit twice before and he's never fired his gun. So why did he fire it this time? Oh, he has experience getting hit by a car, so he knows that he should be able to handle himself in that situation without needing to fire a gun. So why did he do it this time? Did you think about any of this? Is anybody in this administration thinking? Who's running PR? Is anybody thinking this stuff? Is anybody processing this stuff? So I think both of these things are going to come back to haunt them. Callously blaming the dead woman like the left did with Ashley Babbitt is only going to infuriate the left and give them more reason to protest. And then in your defense of the ICE agent saying, well, he's been hit by a car before and he never fired his gun. And he has experience, so he can't just say he was shocked. He has experience with this and never firing a gun. Is anybody thinking about this? They have identified the ICE officer. I'm not going to give you the name. It's out there. It's in the press. I'm just not going to give you the name right now. But they have identified the officer. And now, certainly, the left is going to try to find as much information about this officer as possible. And it will be interesting to know about his career or history in law enforcement. Basically, I guess what we know now is he's at least been around for 6 months or so. He's been part of these operations before, enough of them that he's been hit by 1 or 2 cars before, never fired a bullet. But they have the name, but it's going to be interesting to find out how long he's been around, his experience, when he was hired, all of this stuff. And I'm sure that the left is going to try to get all this information to the press as soon as they possibly can. I don't want to be involved in that. Apparently, he did have to go to the hospital and get some stitches. This is like, I don't know if this has any value. I didn't want to say this yesterday. I guess I could today. I don't really know if this has any value. I've actually been hit by a car twice in my life. I've been run over by a car twice in my life. That's actually true. And I mean, thank God, I never had to go to a hospital. But I was stupid argument with an ex-girlfriend when I was younger, and then just being stupid with my friends when I was younger. But I've been thrown off a moving vehicle and run over by it. That was an ex-girlfriend. And I had a friend of mine run me over with his car. He was trying to fake me out because I was standing in front of his car being a jackass. He tried to fake me out by faking like he was going to run me over. Then he did. So I've actually been hit by a car twice. I've actually had my legs run over by a car twice. And somehow, I guess, miracle, never had a broken bone, never had to get any stitches. Wasn't a pleasant experience. But so I'm sitting here and I'm like, seeing this guy get bumped by a car and the Trump administration acting like, oh my God, he's paralyzed. He's almost dead. And I'm just like, okay, hold on a second. He was walking after that. He took 2 shots after that. What are we talking about here? Let's stop over sensationalizing it, because now you guys look like bad actors. But I do find it strange. To me, it almost shows premeditation that he took that first shot. Because believe me, you're not thinking about shooting a gun when the car is hitting you and running you over. You're thinking about, how do I survive? You're thinking about, how do I minimize the damage? And time does slow down when this is happening. And the fact that his first thing was to fire the gun, I just think this is going to be a hard legal defense. That's all. I think a lot of people in the right are buying into it's going to be easily defendable and he's totally in the right. And I'm not saying that it's not. This woman hit him with the car. This woman was breaking the law. This woman was not cooperating with police. She put herself in that situation. That is true. I'm not here to defend her actions. I just think people in the right are drinking the Kool-Aid here, and they think this is going to be open and shut and easily defendable. I don't think so. And I think the fact that the FBI, the Trump FBI, is coming in to run cover over this investigation says that they don't think it's going to be so good either. I'm telling you, folks, there's a lot of things here that when it comes out in the court case, they're gonna have a hard time defending. 3 shots? Oh, you've been hit by a car before and you've never fired your gun? These are going to be tough things in the courtroom, folks. And then you have the fact that he left the scene, which I believe is a crime in and of itself. If you're an officer and you shoot somebody, even if they're committing a crime, even if it's in self-defense, you can't leave without rendering aid. He left. And then they blocked people from rendering aid. Doctor tried to help woman shot dead by ice, but agents blocked him from treating her. I mean, she was probably dead immediately anyway, so I don't think it would have made a difference. The whole thing is just a bad look, guys. It's just a bad look. And again, this administration is more concerned with running cover than they are with trying to solve problems at this point. The problem is Pam Bondi. None of this happens if Pam Bondi is competent. None of this happens if Pam Bondi shuts this stuff down. But she's not competent. She didn't shut this stuff down. So now here we are. And we've been warning about Pam Bondi's incompetence catching up to this administration for months. For months. And now here we are. But I'm telling you, folks, none of this is going to look good in the court. And I think that you probably had a chance to maybe get a fair outcome here. I think that you maybe had a chance to get a fair outcome. I think that you maybe had a chance for the left to be reasonable about this. I mean, you look at some of the voices like a Stephen A. Smith and others that have come out and said, you know what, the ICE officer was justified, but it didn't have to be this way. So it's like there are voices of reason on the left that would have said, hey, this is not good. ICE officer was justified, but you know what, we need to kind of review this whole thing. But now that you're coming out and callously blaming it on her and calling her a terrorist and over exaggerating what happened to the guy that got hit by the car. Now, the reasonable left, the leftists, the people on the left that might have been reasonable about this and maybe tried to calm things down, now I don't think so. Now I think they're going to say, oh, really? It's like that? Screw you then. Maybe you guys are that evil. Screw you. I have a feeling that's going to be the case. And if they try to cover this thing up with the FBI, oh, boy. Oh, boy. And then what is this? The Trump administration says it's illegal to record videos of ICE? What? Violence is anything that threatens them and their safety, so it is doxing them. It's videotaping them where they're at when they're out on operations, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said. What? Kristi Noem says you're not allowed to videotape ICE agents? Don't they have to videotape themselves? Isn't that the law? What is she talking about? The bimbo administration is out of control. Kristi Noem, I got to say, you looked hot yesterday, Kristi. You looked hot yesterday in your little cowgirl outfit with your cowboy hat just over the brim of your nose. Looking hot, Kristi. Yeah. This bimbo administration is getting ridiculous. It's starting to reach a point of no return. What are we going to do with Caroline Leavitt, the 28-year-old with the 65-year-old husband with baby 2 on the way? What are we going to do with her? Is she going to stick around, or is she about to abandon ship too, running cover for this administration? How much more of the bimbofication do we have to have here? I need competent men running this administration. And notice who had the most measured response here. Tom Homan. Tom Homan did an interview after this, and he had the most measured response. He said, you know what? It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for the girl. It doesn't look good for the ICE agent. We're going to have to wait and see some details. We're going to have to wait and see the investigation, and I'll comment then. What do you know? A competent man. What do you know? A competent man with the measured message on how to respond to this in the immediate aftermath. And of course, it's the competent man. I'm sorry. Let's just say what it is. The bimbo administration has gone too far. And because of the inaction of Pam Bondi and the cowgirl Kristi Noem, we have a dead woman now in Minnesota, and you're going to have to deal with it. And I don't care what outfit you put on, Kristi. You're going to have to deal with it. And telling people they can't film federal officers is not how to deal with it. I'm done. I'm done with the White House administration bimbos. I'm done. I want competent men. That's what I want. Tom Homan should be in charge of this now. Tom Homan needs to be running Homeland Security. This is outrageous. Send DHS Barbie packing. Tell her to take her cowboy hat. Tell her to take her camo. Tell her to send it packing. Tell Bimbo Bondi, send it packing. We need a competent man running this Department of Justice now. This is falling apart. Deportations are not where they need to be. Sorry, Kristi, you gotta go. Take your cowboy hat with you. The radical left groups funding and organizing these protests are still operating. Sorry, Pam Bondi, you have failed. You've got to go. We need a competent man. Do you ever wonder? I have to tell you, I do. I think about this. What would this be like? What would be happening if Matt Gaetz was the Attorney General? Did you ever think about that? I've got to tell you, I think about this. I got to tell you. Because I got a feeling a lot of this stuff would not be happening if Matt Gaetz was the Attorney General. I got to tell you. But there's obviously a reason why they did not let him become Attorney General. And, you know, I don't think we're going to go to Caroline Leavitt here talking about this. And while Caroline has all the earmarks of a bimbo, look, overall, I think Caroline's probably done a pretty good job, I'd say. She's put into a bad position now, having to run cover for this administration as things get a little off the rails and the priorities are out of whack. But all things considered, Leavitt's probably done a pretty good job managing all of this. And now, while pregnant, we find out too. So we'll see how much longer she sticks around. But it's getting tiresome, guys. It's just getting old. And as the threads continue to become undone and the administration becomes even more and more off the rails, I'm sorry, I don't want to see Kristi Noem in her cowboy outfit. I don't want to see Kristi Noem in her officer outfit. I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to hear about Pam Bondi on Fox News. I don't want to hear Pam Bondi say she's going to do something that she's never going to do. I'm done. I'm done with it. I want competent men. So it's like I can sit here and talk about Witkov saying how Ukraine is going to go to BlackRock and Vanguard and all of these things, and I can have a problem with that. I cannot like the results, but at least I can sit here and say, well, Witkov is getting stuff done. Witkov is competent, and he's getting stuff done. Whether I like the results or not, at least I know this is a competent man that gets stuff done. Pam Bondi gets nothing done. I don't know what Kristi Noem gets done. I don't know. She's good for PR. She's good on camera. This is getting out of control, the bimbos. I'm done with it. We get it, Trump. We get it. You like to be surrounded by beautiful women. We all know. This is why you hung out with Jeffrey Epstein so much. We get it. All right? I'm right there with you. I like hot chicks, okay? It's becoming a problem, Donald. Okay? The bimbos are becoming a liability, Donald. We need competent men. But again, maybe he just keeps them around because when things go sideways, people look at Noam and they look at Bondi and they say, well, there's your problem. And that's what's happening. I think Levitt is starting to border on that as well, though I find her far more competent at her job. So here is her comments on this shooting yesterday. This was her today at the Oval Office White House press briefing.
The deadly incident that took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister, left-wing movement that has spread across our country, where our brave men and women of federal law enforcement are under organized attack. Right now, Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers.
And this is why Levitt is now into the bimbofication. It's not her fault. It's not her fault. She's just doing her job. But now this is where we're at. We know. There's left-wing organizations. There's left-wing fundraising groups that organize and fund this stuff and get people out in the streets that cause chaos and violence. Really? No kidding. What has been done about it? This has been going on for 10 years. What has been done about it? Pam Bondi was supposed to do something about this. See, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you can't get in front of the American people anymore and talk about a stolen election. You've done nothing about it. You can't get in front of the American people anymore and talk about the invasion at the southern border. You've done nothing to arrest the people that facilitated it. You can't come in front of the American people and say these are left-wing groups that are well-funded and well-organized that are causing this. So why don't you do something about it? This doesn't work anymore. This is why Dan Bongino is flatlining in the media right now. We'll get to that next. You're selling us an expired sandwich from the gas station. Yes, we know there are left-wing groups that fund and organize this stuff. Pam Bondi was supposed to shut it down. She hasn't. So you just keep telling us about these things and you do nothing about it. It doesn't work anymore.
Officers are facing a 1,200% increase in assaults, a 3,200% increase in vehicle rammings, and an 8,000% increase in death threats.
And what has been done about it?
ICE agents are faithfully enforcing federal law to protect the safety of the American people by removing criminal illegal aliens from our country, which is exactly what nearly 80 million Americans elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to do. Radicals in the Democrat Party are furious over this. They don't want our border secured or criminal illegal aliens being removed. As a result, Democrats are impeding immigration enforcement operations daily, creating extremely heightened and dangerous circumstances that make it nearly impossible.
Caroline, you reading off a script ain't working.
for the men and women of law enforcement to simply do their jobs.
Yeah. The script reading is not working, Caroline. Everything you just said has been known, well known, and it was supposed to be addressed by Pam Bondi, and it hasn't been. It's so old. It's so tiresome. It's so stale. It's so expired. It doesn't work anymore. It's not working anymore. It's not going to work here. And people are sick and tired of it and the inaction from this administration.
You're listening to the Owen Report on the Win Network.
Guys, what are you doing to protect your private information online? Have you thought about this? Maybe you've even dealt with this. What are you doing to protect your private information online? Now, as somebody that has dealt with this, I can tell you how it happens, and I can tell you the potential ramifications. This is why you need to go to protectwithowen.com. Now, when I got doxxed last year and when I got swatted last year, obviously I looked into how could this even be possible? How could they find my information, my family's information, and harass them too? And you come to find out, well, you've got these hacking groups that can hack into larger institutions and get your private information. Or you find out there's websites out there. They call these people search engines. There's hundreds of them, and they have basically a tree of your private information and your family's information. And you think, well, what can I do about this? Well, you can try as an individual to have this stuff removed, but we learned that that is a difficult thing to do. Or you can go to protectwithowen.com, talk to my friends at Patriot Protect, and have them take care of this for you. By the way, right now, folks, take advantage of this. 15% off, 15% off a yearly subscription with coupon code Owen at checkout. 15% off yearly subscription with coupon code Owen at checkout. Patriot-protect.com/Owen. Here's what happens. They have a system, and it will search the internet round the clock. It's like an internet security system all around the clock. And whenever your private information pops up on the internet, they take immediate action to make sure it's removed. So they do the full first sweep of the internet for your family's information, your private information, and they scrub it. But that's not when the work is done. That's just phase one. After they remove it, then they're constantly monitoring the internet 24/7 to make sure that information doesn't pop up again. And if it ever does, they immediately remove it. So whether you're a victim of one of these hacks where the information ends up online, or one of these people search engines gets access to your private information with other records, Patriot Protect can get it off the internet and protect you and your family's interests. So go to protectwithowen.com. That's protectwithowen.com. Or I'm sorry. No, it's patriot-protect.com/Owen. I should probably move those two banners so they're right next to one another. Those two websites confuse me next to one another. Both are great websites, though. Patriot-protect.com/Owen. Coupon code Owen, 15% off. Folks, in a couple of years, this is going to be as common as having a Ring doorbell. In a couple of years, this is going to be as common as we used to have, virus protection on your computers. Remember that? That was common stuff. Now your computers just come with it. This is going to be, every household is going to have this. Eventually, every household is going to realize, I need to protect my private information. I need to protect my family. I need to go to patriot-protect.com/Owen. Coupon code Owen, 15% off the yearly subscription. I'm telling you, this will be a household thing. Do it now, folks. Protect your private information. Protect your family. Don't be a victim of identity theft. Don't be a victim of credit card theft. Don't be a victim of doxing, swatting, all this other stuff that the potential risks come with. Don't be a victim. Go to patriot-protect.com/Owen. Use coupon code Owen for 15% off a yearly subscription and protect your private information with our friends at Patriot Protect.
Navigating between the sane and insane. It's the Owen Report with Owen Schroyer.
All right, we're into hour number 2 today, and I want to talk about this was crazy to me. And I think it tells a pretty significant story here. We talked about the big buildup, the return of Dan Bongino, right? The dramatic return of Dan Bongino. And did you know it was yesterday? I don't say this in a condescending manner. Did you know it was yesterday? I didn't even know it was yesterday. Dan Bongino made his return to the podcast world yesterday, and nobody even cared. Now, I guess you could argue he went on with some girl, I don't know her name. I forget her name, Haley or something. She's had a show for a little bit. Nobody listens. It's like Haley Corona or something. She's one of those gals that gets into on-camera media because she's good looking, but really has nothing to offer past her looks. So it's like you can get by. You can get by on your looks if you're a good-looking woman in media. So she's one of those types. But so Bongino makes his on-air return or debut post-FBI. Folks, nobody even knew. So again, you could argue, well, it wasn't the Dan Bongino show. It wasn't his return to the podcast with some big hype and big announcement and big reveal. But I mean, still it happened. And it was like a nothing. It was like a nothing burger. No clips, no viral moments. It happened. It came and went. Nobody even noticed. That's very telling to me. That's very telling to me. The only reason I even found out, the only reason I even knew is because Clint Russell shared this. Bongino went back to his show for the first time tonight, and I was curious how his comment section was looking. Would people accept the betrayal? Answer, no. I scrolled through about 75 replies before finding a single positive one. People are justifiably furious. And so Bongino's response here, Mark Dice getting in there. Bongino's response here has been to attack his audience. Now, I did the thrust of my Bongino coverage yesterday. I'm not going to really get back into that. But I do think it's telling. This is worse than I thought. Bongino makes the return to media yesterday, and it has flatlined. And the only result of this return has been Bongino crashing out and blaming his audience and blocking people on X that offer criticism. Folks, that's telling. And I think it's more telling than what we already anticipated with Bongino's return, coming back empty-handed to his show. It's that people now move on from you so fast that you become irrelevant before you even realize it. So it's like Bongino thinks he's still relevant because he's getting these attacks and he's blocking people, and it's like he's kind of getting mocked. So it's like that's kind of like the relevant status is, all right, well, I'm still getting attacked. I'm still getting mocked. So I'm still relevant. But then you go on air and nobody knows and nobody cares. The irrelevance hit a lot faster than I anticipated. I thought when he would go on air, there'd be some viral moments, there'd be some viral clips, there'd be some hype. And we'll see, I guess, maybe when he returns to the Dan Bongino show, how it goes. But it looks like it's already flatlining to me. I don't think anybody's interested really in what he has to say anymore because I just don't know what you have to say. All the things you've been talking about for 8 years, you just had the opportunity to do something about it and you didn't. And so now you're attacking your audience? Imagine Dan Bongino of 2022 or 2023 talking to Dan Bongino of 2026. That'd be fun. Maybe get an AI to do that. Create that content. But so here you go. I guess there are no viral clips. But there was this. I found this. How is Bongino dealing with his upcoming irrelevancy?
The thing about black pillars, where everything sucks all the time, is like, well, we're demanding accountability, but you're not great. So am I. That's you're endlessly complaining about things you know.
Wait.
Even don't know.
Demanding accountability. You were just at the FBI. That was your job. Again, folks, I don't know Dan Bongino personally, so I don't want to jump to any conclusions. But from somebody that's just observing this, let's put it like that. From somebody who's just observing this, this is just embarrassing. It looks like a guy who now feels exposed. It looks like a guy who is now concerned about his status, his relevancy. I mean, are you hearing this? Hey, I'm about accountability too. What are you talking about? You were just at the FBI. What accountability? Tell me, Mr. Bongino, what accountability did you enact after 8 years of podcasting about the deep state and the Clinton crimes and the Obama crimes and the Biden crimes and the Biden administration crimes and the Obama administration crimes? What accountability did you enact at the FBI in response to all of those crimes? And now you sit down in a podcast studio and you say, I'm for accountability. You were just at the FBI. What's going to happen next? Donald Trump is going to quit. Donald Trump is going to say, I'm not going to be president anymore. And then once I go on a podcast, then the fight starts. Once I go on a podcast, then the accountability starts. Once I do a podcast, the deep state will be arrested. So I'm going to stop being the president so that then I can get accountability. What are we talking about? What are you saying? Tell me how that makes any sense. It doesn't.
Know anything about. Like, that's all you do. Like, he'll shut down the border, 10 people across the month. Why wasn't it 0? Okay, well, can you just acknowledge?
Nobody's complaining about the border. Literally nobody's complaining about the border. So that's a straw man.
Going from 1 million to 10 is a big deal. That way, and there's a cost to that. And the cost you see is in, polling.
By the way, folks, I'm telling you, you just forget about what he's saying. Look at how this is going. He's on Nightly Scroll with Haley. Who? He doesn't even go back on air with Evita Duffy, who's been his partner on the Dan Bongino show, who launched her own show through the Dan Bongino syndicate, who does a pretty good job, Evita Duffy. He doesn't even go on with Evita, who has way more clout than this. I don't even know who this is. Has anybody ever heard of this girl? Nightly Scroll with Haley. What are we doing, Dan? You're going back on this show that nobody's heard of? You don't even go back on with Evita Duffy? You don't even go back and debut on your own show? What are we doing? This is a failure right out of the gates.
On the midterms. You can't let this negative vibe constantly set in.
Oh, and now they're talking about the midterms. Hey, you need to vote for us even if we do nothing. You need to vote for us even if we don't follow through on any of our promises. You need to vote for us no matter what. That ain't going to work.
That doesn't mean healthy debates about policy are not welcome. Hey, I'm not a big tariff guy. I've said that 1,000 times. Debating policies are fine. I think a lot of the so-called damage from the terrorists was dramatically over-exaggerated. Even people who don't like them haven't acknowledged that now. The economy's motoring, 4% growth. But the black pill complaining and whining all the time about the administration, it's just like, man, what team are you on? Holy Moses, man. So you don't have to watch. It's okay. There's a door, go find the freaking exits. Cause I don't,
and we will.
I don't really give a shit. I'm not here for anybody.
And there it is right there. And there it is right there. I don't give a shit. There it is right there. There it is. There's Dan Bongino. Dan, I don't give a shit, Bongino. Boy, how fast that changed. Boy, how fast that changed. Dan, I don't give a shit, Bongino. Folks, I was a regular Dan Bongino audience member. I wouldn't miss an episode of the Dan Bongino podcast. I'll probably tune in out of curiosity for the first episode or two, but if this is it, if this is how it's going to go, what is this thing about the black pillars? Oh, we're attacking the administration. I'd love to hear Dan get substantive about this. I'd love to hear Dan actually deliver something of substance here. What are we talking about, Dan? Are we talking about the Epstein list? Are we talking about deep state arrests? What are we talking about? Are we talking about the economy? You guys, the administration can't even make up its mind on the economy. One day it's the greatest economy ever. The next day Trump is trying to fix the economy. What is it? We're not black pillars. We're just not brainwashed. We're not black pillars. We just demand results. And when we don't get them, we call you out. And now the tough guy routine, after you leave the FBI, the tough guy routine, attacking your audience, it doesn't make sense. All right, so now they're getting into the fraud. Now they're getting into the fraud. So I said J.D. Vance spoke at the press conference, and this is at the White House today. So I think Vance showing up at the press conference is a sign of something. I'm not sure exactly what. Vance has done a couple interviews, TV interviews, now the press conference. So I guess Vance Vance might be more popular than Trump now. I don't know what this is all about. But there's a story there why Vance is all of a sudden in front of the cameras and doing a press conference today. So he's talking about the fraud. Now I want to get into this whole fraud story here. But let's go to Vance at the press podium talking about the fraud earlier today.
What is that going on there? Is that normal? Okay. CNN installed this broken camera just to throw me off my game, but it's not going to work. So here's the simple fact here. If you're a young parent.
That's nice. That's nice. The camera's not working. Now the stream is froze. It's really nice. It's really a fun thing, you know? This is what we want. Let's see if this decides to pick up or not.
Struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool.
Oh, there's J.D. Vance admitting the economy is tough. Yeah, okay.
Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others. Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number two, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with. We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud so that people who need food benefits can get them, but illegal aliens and other fraudsters don't. We have over 1,500 subpoenas that the Department of Justice has issued to get to the heart of the fraud ring. We've done almost 100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis. It's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, is we are creating a new assistant attorney general position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud. Now, of course,
I actually think this is good. I'm not complaining. They have to hire an assistant attorney general. So even the White House is admitting Pam Bondi is incompetent. Is anybody considering of maybe we just need a new attorney general? Maybe. So Pam Bondi is so incompetent that the White House is now bringing in an assistant. I'm okay with it. I'm good. Bring in an assistant. Bring in as many hands on deck as you need to prosecute the fraud criminals. All right, that's good. I'm okay with that. But it's like, is this a Pam Bondi issue here? Seems to be a Pam Bondi issue. But I'm fine. Increase it. Increase the Department of Justice's ability to track and trace and arrest these fraudsters.
That person's efforts will start and focus primarily in Minnesota, but it is going to be a nationwide effort because, unfortunately, the American people have been defrauded in a very nationwide way. I want to thank a couple of people for their cooperation, in particular Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, first of all, for getting a lot of resources to Minneapolis to start to investigate and prosecute this fraud, really at an industrial.
Thank you, Pam Bondi. And you're doing such a great job that we have to hire somebody to help you.
Industrial scale. We've never seen fraud like this in the history of our country. Pam has been doing a great job to get the resources there to uncover it. But importantly, creating a job like this often takes months, sometimes even longer. When we realized that we needed this associate attorney general position, Pam got this person up and running in about a week. We're going to make the nomination hopefully in the next few days. We'll obviously let you guys know who that is when we do it. I've talked to Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who has promised me swift confirmation for this official. But this is the person who is going to make sure that we stop defrauding the American people. Here's one final thing I'll say about this. I've heard a lot of people say that we need a special counsel to investigate fraud in the United States of America. I actually agree, and that's what this position does. It has all the benefits, all the resources, all the authority of a special counsel, but with two crucial differences. Number one, it will be run out of the White House under the supervision of me and the President of the United States. And number two, it's actually constitutionally legitimate. As you guys may know, the special counsel statute has some major constitutional questions. When we get the bad guys, we want to make sure we get them permanently and they don't have some legal technicality they can get out of, which is why we set it up as an associate attorney general.
All right. So, okay, some consequential announcements there. We've got some more. We got some more comments from the administration on the fraud, and then Anna Paulina Luna as well. It seems, though, I think the administration, maybe rightfully so, views J.D. Vance as kind of their star pupil now, because he's done a range of TV interviews and now he's hosting the press conference. It seems like when ratings are down and criticism is up, they put J.D. Vance up there. He's like the star of the administration now. You know, they send him out there because he's the most connected to the base or the most understanding of where the average American is at. He's the least cringe, even, dare I say, he's the least cringe of them. So it seems like that's the pattern here. It's like, okay, when the ratings are down and the poll numbers are down and the criticism is up, we have to send J.D. Vance out there to do a media tour because he's the most well-recepted member of this administration now. So I don't think that is a coincidence. I think that that's how they view it, and maybe that is inaccurate. Maybe that's the truth. Maybe he is the most well-recepted member of this administration now. Now, here's Scott Bessent. He's echoing a lot of the same things. Talking about the fraud, but getting more into the detail.
IRS called criminal investigations. And these men and women, they are cool cats. They can take apart a balance sheet, and they can knock down a door and arrest someone. Like they go out on patrols, they can make arrests. It's this very interesting hybrid force, about 2,500 of them, and they led the charge here. So it was IRS CIs who they uncovered the initial fraud and the prosecutions. So it's with that group, with other groups at IRS, and with the powers of the Treasury to track where the money came from, where it's going. We saw this very unsettling news yesterday that many people involved here with the administration of these programs have tried to go back and they recreate documents, change documents, and we're not going to have that. We are going to hold people accountable. We're going to press this to the full extent possible. And like I said, I think that this may just be, it's a cold day outside, so this could be the tip of the iceberg here in Minnesota, but it's probably may not be as prevalent, but the dollars may be bigger and larger in other states. And just to put this in perspective for American taxpayers, for American families, the GAO, the General Accounting Office, believes that there is somewhere between 300 and 600 billion of annual fraud, roughly 10% of government spending that disappears due to fraud. If we can recapture that, that is 1% to 2% of GDP.
So this is what's going to be interesting. Now, I don't like what he's saying about the IRS. And again, I just, to me, Scott Bessent is competent and he's a good communicator, and I don't think he's a liar. So everything he just said there is true. But this is what's going to be strange. First of all, I don't like what he says about the IRS investigative team, law enforcement team. I don't like that for 1 second. This is supposed to be a collection agency and nothing else. So it just shows how the IRS has expanded into law enforcement in ways that they weren't supposed to. So I'd rather shut down the IRS entirely. And if you want to take the fraud investigation team to the DOJ or the FBI, then I think that would be the right way to go about it. But they all need to be shut down, in my opinion. But okay, so Bessent is communicating how this stuff works. And then they're giving you their rough numbers, their estimates about how much fraud there is. So this is going to be, I think this is the big one. I think that this is the big one where the MAGA bitter clingers that aren't operatives or agents or liars or bad actors, whatever you want to say, but are still good people, but still want to have full faith in this administration and Donald Trump to do all of this stuff. I think the fraud thing is going to be the last straw. I think it's going to be the last straw. So Bessent says minimum $300 billion in fraud annually. Well, fraud is a crime. Waste and abuse, maybe you can't get a criminal conviction. Fraud, that is a crime. So Elon Musk estimates $700 billion in fraud annually. Scott Bessent says it's at minimum $300 billion in fraud. We'll split the difference. We'll say $500 billion in fraud every year. Okay, so how many arrests do there need to be? How many criminal cases and charges and thus arrests are we talking about here? 100, 1,000, 10,000? How many arrests need to follow $500 million? I'm sorry, $500 billion. How many arrests need to follow $500 billion in fraud every year? And that's why this Minnesota thing is going to be so crazy. If this administration does not make thousands of arrests and can't deliver a case, and again, it's like Bessent, it's almost like Bessent has to be the one to do this. I don't know who Trump is going to put in charge of the Fed when Powell's time is up. Part of me wants to see Bessent. Who knows? Trump might appoint himself. I just think Bessent is a good communicator, and I just think he's an honest dealer, and I think he's competent. So you can criticize him and question his background, but as far as the work he's done with this administration, he's definitely a competent man. So if this administration does not get hundreds or thousands of arrests dealing with this fraud. I don't know how the MAGA bitter clingers here that are just in total denial that this administration has gone sideways, I don't know how they hang on after that. I don't know how they can excuse that. Musk is saying it. Bessent is saying it. The biggest story to close out last year was the fraud in Minnesota. It created this trend of people discovering fraud in Ohio and Texas and everywhere else, and the daycare fraud. So, okay, where are the thousands of arrests? So maybe you can excuse no Epstein arrests. Maybe you can excuse no deep state arrests. At least you have been able to thus far with some of the people. If you don't make thousands of fraud arrests for $500 billion in fraud annually, I don't know how that gets looked over. I don't know how MAGA deals with that. Now, maybe they will. We've watched the MAGA brainwashing do incredible mental gymnastics for the last couple of months. So maybe they will find a way to justify it. I don't know. But I don't think so. I think that's going to be it because they've made such a big case of it now they have to. So listen to what Kathy Hochul, I think Kathy Hochul might actually be a vampire. She's like central casting for a vampire horror movie. This woman looks like she's straight out of a witch's brew. Notice what she says here to begin the year with Mamdani right to her left here. Listen to this.
This year we're committing an additional $1.7 billion in what we call recurring spending, something my budget director hates, but meaning we're committed. And so that means our total child care investment this year will be $4.5 billion in the state of New York.
So as child care is becoming a hub, as it's being revealed now, that child care has become a hub of corruption, that child care has become a hub of fraud, New York announces $4.5 billion annually for child care. Boy, that's suspicious. Just give me a minute here. I just can't help myself.
This year we're committing an additional
Is this woman not the most ghoulish? There's a vibe. Kathy Hochul puts off a vibe. Okay. There's something there. Okay. There's a vibe. There's an aura. It's vampiric. It's ghoulish. It's the wicked witch. Is anybody else getting that vibe from this woman? There is an aura coming off of this woman that is not human. There is something very dark and sinister behind that plastic smile, behind that painted up face, behind that clown mask that she has on. There's something behind that. There's something sinister behind that. There's something unhuman about this woman. It's very disturbing, actually. I find it extremely disturbing, whatever it is. All right, Anna Paulina Luna. By the way, apparently she had a slip of the tongue on the Patrick Bet David podcast about Erica Kirk, and I heard that, and I was like, well, maybe it's a misunderstanding. I'll just say this real quick. Apparently, so Anna Paulina Luna says that Erica Kirk lost her husband and then lost her kids. She said this on the Patrick Bet David podcast. She said that she lost her kids, and a lot of people are wondering, well, what happened? You know, she's a mother, I think, of three children with Charlie. That's what that's what it's supposed to be. I guess people question everything now, but her and Charlie, 3 kids together. People are saying, well, what happened to the kids? She's been doing media tours. Nobody sees the kids. So then Anna Paulina Luna comes out and says that she lost her kids. And people heard that. Was that a slip of the tongue? Was that a mistake? What happened? Apparently, Erica Kirk is in a custody battle with Charlie's mom and dad. So that's another thing brewing in all of this. But back on topic, Anna Paulina Luna. Now, a lot of people have been talking about Tim Walz. I said a lot of this was going to lead back to Keith Ellison. It looks like others are now reaching the same conclusion about Ellison. This guy's a corrupt Democrat for years. So here's Anna Paulina Luna speaking on the House floor about fraud.
Chair recognizes Ms. Luna.
Thank you, Chairman Comer.
Honorable Robbins, based on your record before your committee, when did Governor Walz first become aware of widespread fraud in Minnesota social service programs?
Guys, are you having glitching problems on the stream today? I've had a couple of these glitching problems today. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. We may need to do a system reset if this continues. I'll power through the show. But I'm getting weird glitches on my end. I don't know if this is.
I would assume that he has been aware of it since he ran for office for governor in 2018.
By 2017, DHS investigators warned CCAP fraud could exceed 50%. What was that information elevated to the governor's office?
Yes, there was an OLA report.
Thank you, ma'am. By 2020, state officials knew feeding our future invoices were fraudulent. We know that payments continued to the AG's knowledge. Did they continue to the governor's knowledge as well?
Yes.
Attorney General Ellison agreed on tape to fight Minnesota's own Department of Human and Health Services in exchange for Somali political and financial support. In your personal opinion, do you believe it is a possibility that Governor Walz also made that personal deal, or that he at least knew about the Attorney General's agreement?
I don't know.
Okay. I don't want to rehash what you guys have spent hours answering. We know that there's a big issue with the fraud in Minnesota. So on a number of things, I'd first like to point out, thank you for being here today. But because of your testimony and because of some of the evidence that we've seen brought forward, as well as I'm sure the fact that this committee, I assume, at Chairman Comer's direction, will be soon subpoenaing AG Ellison, I would like to make criminal referrals regarding Governor Walz as well as AG Ellison. As you know, U.S. Code 371 and U.S. Code 2, which deals with criminalized conspiracies to defraud the United States and establishes liability for individuals who knowingly aid or abet the commission of federal offense, includes willful blindness or deliberate inaction where duties to act exist. So I will be referring them later on today.
So I would not say that's an insignificant development. Anna Paulina Luna, criminal referrals to Walz and Ellison. We'll see if anything comes of it. And this is the one area where I feel like there's enough public pressure and maybe not enough deep state involvement to stop this from happening. So you look at an Epstein thing, it's like there's so much deep state interest to cover this thing up, we're never going to get it. You look at a stolen election, you look at the Obama crimes, the Clinton crimes, the Biden crimes, it's like there's way too much deep state involvement here that they just can't deliver on these things. But with the fraud, it's like maybe that's one where they can actually deliver. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, you know, if they were serious about this, then they would have gone all the way with Doge. So I just have a hard time believing this right now. It's almost a boy that cried wolf scenario. So I'm in the we'll see. I'm not black-pilled that nothing is going to happen with this fraud because everybody's talking about it and they've made it mainstream. But we've already seen this with Doge. We've already seen the hype. We've already seen the coverage. We've already seen the focus with Doge. They can easily abandon these things tomorrow and make you forget about them if they want and pretend like they never did it. So I'm not so convinced that anything is going to happen. I'm not black-pilled on it, but I'm also not convinced anything is going to happen. But the public pressure is there. The public awareness is there. The hype is there. So let's see. But if they don't deliver on this fraud, I think a lot of the bitter clingers to MAGA and the administration and support of it, I think a lot of them are going to get lost in that process if they don't deliver on all this fraud. Now, here's a interesting clip. Lindell TV, Allison Steinberg here reporting. And she was at the Capitol talking to Minnesota State Rep Marion Rarick. By the way, guys, you know, that was the first hearing on the Minnesota fraud. Not much came of it. Not much came of it. Now, Walz is supposed to be testifying next week, I believe. Walz is supposed to be testifying next week on the Minnesota fraud. The Clintons are supposed to be testifying next week on the Epstein case. So we'll see if any of that. happens. But yesterday was the big Minnesota House legislator hearing, and kind of came and went and flatlined, folks. Just like the return of Bongino. Just dust in the wind. So I do think I think it's indicative. I think it's indicative that there's just, I don't know how much we're going to get here, folks. I just don't know. But this is Minnesota whistleblower, State Rep Marion Rarick on Lindell TV. And here's what she had to say outside of the hearing.
Ms. Rarick, you spoke about the retaliation that many have experienced.
We're just going to have to power through, guys. We're going to have to power through. I think I know the problem. We're just going to have to power through today. So just bear with these glitches. But I think I know what happened. I've been sitting in the studio since 11 a.m. The studio's been powered on since 11 a.m., so it probably needs a rest. They keep my computers keep trying to do that, like automatic force you into the new Windows
in light of trying to expose the.
So just bear with these glitches. I'm going to reset the system when we're off tonight, and hopefully get rid of these things. So I apologize, but we're just going to power through today.
Ms. Rarick, you spoke about the retaliation that many have experienced in light of trying to expose the fraud and the corruption happening in Minnesota. Can you speak more to that and what people are experiencing when they try to sound the alarm on what's happening?
Right. So that retaliation's been going on for quite some time. If you look at what Faye Bernstein said in a news report or Newsweek article back in 2019, it started for her, and she was heavily investigated. She was actually moved to a different state agency. She was, retaliated against in every kind of way you can think. What's happened now is retaliation has escalated, and now it's you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your home, we're going to track your children, we're going to make sure that you can't get a job anywhere else in state government. And for Minnesota, that means probably Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Duluth, Rochester. You can't get a job anywhere that Democrats control.
That's pretty terrifying. Do you think that's going to prevent people from continuing to speak out on the issue?
Well, we are really hoping that with all of this light on it and, telling people that this is the retaliation, that if something like that does come to fruition, right now it's threats, although some people have been fired, that they have a little bit more ability to speak up and speak to us, and that we can cover them in that way. But it's been really, really bad, and it's been bad for quite some time.
Now, there's an interesting give and take happening here. So she's talking about the threats and the intimidation, which I don't doubt. Let me be clear. I'm not doubting that is going on. But Nick Shirley went on the Sean Ryan show. I don't know when it was, but Nick Shirley's on the Sean Ryan show, and he was saying the same thing. And Sean said, who? And Shirley couldn't answer. So again, I'm not doubting that these things are happening. Okay. I'm not doubting that there's threats and intimidation. Now, the question is, how legitimate are these things, or how serious are these things? But I don't doubt that it's happening. But it becomes this game. It becomes this little game of results don't matter and hype and attention matter. And I don't play these games. I'm not going to play these games. And maybe with Nick Shirley, an independent journalist, whatever, does he owe it to you to explain who's threatening him or why and all of this stuff that he's talking about? I don't know. Maybe not. But this is a woman who's in the Minnesota state government, and she's talking about threats, and she's talking about intimidation. Well, I'm sorry, but you actually owe us an explanation. You actually need to answer the who and the how and the why. I'm sick of these games, man. I'm sick of these games. And I want to be careful, because I don't want to be, I don't want to be guilty of the exact thing I'm complaining about here. But I'll put it like this. When somebody makes a claim that, oh, this happened and people were here, and then they provide no evidence of it, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I got death threats, I published them. I showed them to a judge. When I got swatted, I published the video. I showed the evidence. So it's like, I see people making these claims, and it's like, okay, well, can you show us the evidence? Can you tell us who? Can you tell us how and why? And when they get pressed on these things, they just are flummoxed, like, oh. It's like, no, you're making a pretty serious claim that people showed up here to do something, and then you can't produce any evidence. You make a pretty serious claim about people showing up at your house or your office, and then you produce no evidence. You make a pretty serious claim about people threatening you, and then you produce no evidence. And we're just asking who. But, okay, fine. In the media world, you're a state representative, and you're claiming that there are threats and intimidation if you cover this fraud. Who? Who is making the threats? Can we see them? Can we prosecute them? Can we investigate them? What is this game? It's all games in this political theater. It's all games. It's all showmanship. It's all look at me. I'm getting real tired of it. All right, let's move into some of this health news quickly. And I think if I time this right, we can take a break and play a clip. Who do we have today? It's a longer clip that we'll use for a break today instead of the music that I know you guys love so much, my classic video game music that has you guys so thrilled whenever I take a break. But I've got some health news. We're going to hear from RFK Jr. in some of the aftermath of the big news this week about the food pyramid, about the vaccine schedule. But we haven't forgotten about Anthony Fauci and how he belongs in prison. So this is RFK Jr.'s son talking about Fauci. Now, RFK Jr., of course, has written the book on Fauci. Let's listen to RFK Jr.'s son talking about that book and Dr. Fauci.
The auto pardons, the auto pen pardons, do you think that's something that will hold water? President Trump made that announcement that they're now null and void, so then Fauci can be arrested. Do you think he'll be arrested?
I think they're going to drag him in front of Congress and he's going to perjure himself, in which case, hopefully, he'll be arrested.
You could ask him one question on this.
The problem is he's already done that, though. Fauci has already done that.
And what would it be?
Well, I think he is such an egomaniac. He'll lie to save his own ego, to try to, go down as the guy that people were selling the candles of and stuff like that. I would like to see the emails that, obviously we got a trove of leaked emails from him. Part of those emails said, if you have anything really crazy to send, send it to my personal email. I would like to see what's on those emails. If I had to ask him one question, I would say, why do you do gain of function research? Just why?
Right.
Give us, if he really had to answer the truth on that and say bioweapons out loud, that would be a violation of the Geneva Convention, and off to a new Nuremberg style trial with you and everybody else involved.
Right. So if I ask you that question, you're Dr. Fauci, could you answer? Let me ask you the question though.
Yeah.
So I'm you, and I'm saying, why do you make bioweapons? No, why do you do gain of function?
Well, let me be perfectly clear. There was a biodefense boom in America. The Pentagon was throwing money at me. And what am I going to do? I need the money. I approve the grant.
That's what he would say.
That's something like that.
If he was telling the truth, that's what he would say.
That's good. That's good stuff from RFK Jr. son. And great work, Kara Castronova. Big shout out to Lindell TV. They don't get enough credit for putting Kara Castronova in there, for putting Allison Steinberg in there. Because, folks, I got to tell you, those are two people that are from, let's say, the MAGA base that are actually in there asking tough questions and real questions every day. The only reporter that asked a January 6th question on Tuesday to the press corps, to the White House, was Kara Castronova. She was the only one. Lindell TV doesn't get enough credit. Mike Lindell does not get enough credit. Good for you guys. Give you a little shout out. Give you a little love there. Did you see the vote? The Obamacare tax credits, the Obamacare subsidies will continue. Well, we'll see what happens in the Senate. House poised to extend ACA subsidies as hope grows for deal. pay attention to Josh Hawley on this. Now, Josh Hawley is close to a true conservative. I think the number one conservative in the Senate is Rand Paul, but Hawley's pretty good. And, he's talked about some of the war powers and his constitutional understanding of them. And he's not exactly too friendly of what the Trump administration is doing. I wouldn't say he's been critical, but he has, he's pretty constitutionally sound on that. He's also been really outspoken about the ACA subsidies, but how he's kind of caught in the middle because he realizes that if they don't pass this, that people are going to lose their health care. So he kind of doesn't know what to do. Keep an eye on Hawley with all of this. But the House has passed it. The House has passed it. And here's your Republicans that voted to advance the Democrats' bill to subsidize Obamacare. The 9 Republicans: Brian Fitzpatrick, Rob Bresnahan, Tom Keene, Nick Lolata, Mike Lawler, Ryan McKenzie, a lot of Pennsylvania in there, a lot of New York in there. This is mostly East Coasters. Max Miller, Maria Elvira Salazar. She talks a lot, a big game, but her voting record is not good. Not good. David Vallado. So there's your 9 Republicans in the House that extended the Obamacare subsidies. Look, obviously, we're against that here. But again, this is why I say let's watch Josh Hawley, because I got to imagine it's tough. Because the whole healthcare system is just, it's hanging in the brink. It's hanging in the balance, and people can barely afford to live, and now their healthcare bills are about to go up. This is tough. Now, again, I'm against it. I'm against it. Shut it down. It's a disaster, obviously. But I don't know. I guess I can understand. You get constituents calling you. Who knows? Maybe it's even your family, and they say, look, if you don't pass this bill, my health care is going to go up 10%. It's going to double, whatever. So the Republicans passed it through the House. I don't know if it passes the Senate. We'll see. But I'm going to be watching Hawley on this. I think Hawley is a good kind of equilibrium measuring stick. I think he's honest about where he stands, and I think he's fair about it too. So we're going to be watching. Ken Paxton made this announcement today. I secured a major agreement with Crest Toothpaste to protect children from excessive fluoride exposure. Well, it's funny about the fluoride toothpaste, because on the bottle, it'll tell you it's like 0.2% fluoride normally, I think. It's 0.2%, so it's not even 1%. It's like 0.2% fluoride, but it says do not ingest. So you can't ingest the 0.2% fluoride in the toothpaste, but supposedly you're supposed to drink it with your water. People are starting to understand that the fluoride is not good for them. They're starting to get it. They're starting to see how it's been a weapon against the American people. Good for Ken Paxton. And I will just say this. I'll be voting for Ken Paxton because I like Ken. And, without saying too much, maybe even for personal reasons, I'll be voting for Ken Paxton to defeat John Cornyn. And I think it's inevitable. Cornyn is out anyway. My frustration in Texas, and I talk to a lot of people here. I'm not the most involved with Texas politics, but I am in Austin. It is the capital. And obviously I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of movers and shakers and people that are involved. So, I got a pretty good idea of what's going on. The Texas GOP is so incompetent that we're putting Wesley Hunt and Ken Paxton in the same race against John Cornyn. And I'm just like, what the hell are we doing? Wesley Hunt is an incredible candidate. He is fantastic, superstar. And Ken Paxton, again, same story. Ken Paxton is like, he'll be a great senator, or he'd be a great governor. The Texas GOP, what are we doing, guys? You got to find a way to sort this out. You can't have Hunt and Paxton running in the same race. Now, maybe they get together and they say, well, you know what? This is the race we want to run, so we're just going to run it. But can somebody just sit them down and just say, hey, guys, why don't one of you run for governor and one of you run for Senate, and we'll go through that. We'll go through it like that. And then maybe in a couple election cycles, we can revisit it and maybe one runs for governor and one runs for Senate. You've got 2 fantastic candidates and you're running both of them in the same race. It drives me nuts. Because when I talk local politics and I talk to some of these groups, And we're talking about groups that have, 40,000 people in a voting block, 100,000 people in a voting block. And some of them say, oh, we're going for Paxton. Some say we're going for Hunt. I like them both. I'm going to be voting for Paxton. But I like Hunt. I'd like to vote for Hunt for governor. And nobody likes Abbott. Everybody's sick of Greg Abbott in this state. It's like Hunt could defeat Greg Abbott. And I love Doc Chambers. He's a great guy. But he's not going to beat Abbott. Sorry, Doc. I love you. But you're not going to do it. Wesley Hunt could do it. But now he's probably going to run against Paxton and lose. So there you go. All right. Yeah, okay, we're going to go to this video. This is Nicole Shanahan talking about what just happened in California, where they're about to legislate that the government gets to decide what to do with your body. You're losing bodily autonomy in California. So this will be our break. I'm sorry to our friends that love the break music. You'll have to withhold for this. We're going to go to this interview for the break as we close out the second hour. We'll be back in the third. We got a stack of geopolitical news. We'll take some phone calls. We will read your super chats. We take our second hour break, and then we're going to Nicole Shanahan for a break. Not your favorite music, but we'll be back shortly.
You're listening to the Owen Report on the Win Network.
And by definition, can they even be called a vaccine if they don't stop the spread of a, right?
Well, did you hear about what happened for Health Freedom Defense Fund last week? I don't know if you're aware of this.
No, I'm not too familiar with your organization. I've heard a little bit about it, but yeah, tell us, share.
So I mentioned that we had sued the Los Angeles Unified School District in 2021. Well, we sued them twice in 2021 because first we sued them over mandating the shot when it was EUA. And then they basically duped the court into believing that they weren't going to issue a mandate because they had repealed their first one, rescinded it. And then so the court dismissed the case and said, look, there's nothing for us to adjudicate at this point. The case is no longer ripe. We're not going to deal with it. We're dismissing the case. 17 days later, LAUSD implemented a new mandate saying that employees could not test, and it fired a couple of weeks later 500 employees. It went on to fire or displace more than 1,000 in total. And it denied. It said, "Well, we accept your religious exemption or your medical exemption," but they refused to accommodate them. So they pushed them out. People were pushed out. No pensions. They lost their seniority. They lost everything. They were fired. They lost their jobs. I mean, it was really outrageous. So we filed another lawsuit in November of 2021, and in this case, we argued that the shots do not stop transmission or infection, and we knew this because CDC said that in late July of 2021. And CMS confirmed that. Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services confirmed that in, I believe it was October of 2021. And so if they don't stop transmission or infection, we argued, then they are not a public health issue. They are therapeutic. They are a private matter, and they must be treated as such. We also argued that natural immunity is real and that the Supreme Court case from 1905 called Jacobson versus Massachusetts doesn't apply because Jacobson was predicated on the Supreme Court's assumption that the smallpox vaccination was safe and effective because it had been in use for many, many years. Now, I will leave that aside because I don't think it was safe or effective, but that's what people claimed and that's what the court accepted.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, we ended up doing super well. At first it got dismissed. Then we had a fantastic argument in front of a 3-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit on appeal, and they found in our favor. And then there was what's called an en banc review, meaning a broader review of the Ninth Circuit. And usually it takes 9 to 10, 12 months to get a ruling, an opinion, or a decision out of the Ninth Circuit. It took 3 months to get their decision this time. And they ruled against us last Thursday, July 31st. And they said that all that mattered was that there was a public health emergency, I don't think that's true. We are actually argued that COVID was not smallpox. Smallpox had a 30% death rate. We knew already by the time when LAUSD mandated their shot that the death rate was in line with the seasonal flu. It was absurd. It was not it was not an emergency anymore. We knew from the spring of 2020 that 4% of Los Angeles County residents had already been exposed and recovered. Literally 4% in April, May of 2020. This was known a year in advance. It means everybody's been exposed practically at that point by August of 2021. And so we argued it's not the same thing, and therefore Jacobson does not apply. And the court said it doesn't matter whether or not the shot stops transmission or infection. All that matters is that the school district could have assumed that it did.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yes, it is, Nicole.
That's a terrifying precedent. Are there any appeals available?
We can appeal to the Supreme Court, and so we're considering.
It's the fastest 3 hours on the internet. It's the Owen Report with Owen Schroyer.
Trump administration coming out in full force to the World Economic Forum, coming out in full force to Davos this year. Well, that's going to be interesting. Of course, in the past, Trump has been known to show up at these globalist events and give them a tongue lashing. I wonder how this one is to go. But apparently the entire Trump administration is going to be heading to this one. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Energy Secretary Chris Wright, and maybe more. And many more, actually, it looks like here, will join President Trump at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland later this month. Jameson Greer, head of U.S. trade policy, Steve Witkoff, special envoy to the Middle East, AI and crypto czar David Sachs, Michael Kratsios, Dr. Oz. The list goes on and on. The administration is coming in force, said Dave Ackerman, who is organizing the U.S. House in Davos, which for the first time is being recognized by the U.S. State Department as the country's official headquarters on the promenade. All right, so that's going to be an interesting speech. To kind of get a measurement here. Are we going to have kind of the typical tongue lashing of the globalists and the EU and the like that we're used to hearing from President Trump in the past? Or is the message going to be a little different this go around? We shall see. More with J.D. Vance. This is him on Fox News. He was asked about how the Venezuela situation benefits America. Here's what he had to say.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Taking out a dictator in Venezuela. How does that help the average American?
Well, a few things, Jesse. First of all, what it means is we're going to be able to control the incredible natural resources of Venezuela, which is good for America in a few ways. Number one, it allows us to put leverage on our enemies. Number two, it makes sure that if Americans need high quality, low cost power, we're always going to have access to it. And then the third thing is it does demonstrate American military excellence, which makes people afraid to cross us in the future. Some of the best ways that you maintain the peace is to make it clear that you carry a very strong sword if you ever need to use it. So I think it's good for us in a lot of different ways. We also have to remember, Jesse, this is in our neighborhood. This is not Iraq. This is not 7,000 miles away. This is in our neighborhood. If we cannot follow the basic principle, which has been a cornerstone of American foreign policy for 200 years, that we control our neighborhood, a lot of bad people are going to take advantage of it. What the President of the United States said is, in our neighborhood, the United States calls the shots. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it is again under the president's leadership.
So I'd say, I'm kind of neutral on the message. I think that, part of you kind of agrees with that and says, okay, maybe you don't like the idea of American imperialism and just saying, well, your resources are ours now. But, okay, maybe you're like, well, it could benefit us in a way. Now, when he talks about this is in our neighborhood, okay, again, Western Hemisphere, the Americas, we're not in the Middle East. That's fair. But what about our own house? What about the Biden administration? What about the Biden crime family? So it's like we're not even dealing with the corruption in our own house before we deal with the corruption in our neighborhood. I don't like that. But let me just say this to JD Vance. JD, the next time the Fox makeup team comes to you before one of these TV interviews, just say no. Okay? Just say no. Just be prepared. Just say no. And if you have to get aggressive with them, because I know how they are, I've had to do it too, just say no. Just make sure they know. Do not touch me with that. But maybe you like it. I would still just advise, just deny. Just say, no, thank you. I don't need the makeup. Okay. The geopolitical headlines. Israeli forces kill 7 in Gaza, say they hit rocket launch site. Well, that's not what they did. They hit a tent city of Gazans that are refusing to leave and let the Israeli settlers come in and take the land. So the peace deal is not going well. Israel has now killed, 400, 500 people since the peace deal has been signed. They're bombing 7 different countries. There is no peace deal. It's Israel gets to keep killing and attacking, and everyone else has to just allow it to happen. That's the peace deal. So there's another one there. War is breaking out in Syria, so I guess that regime change isn't going so well. Shelling rocks Syria's Aleppo as clashes intensify between government and Kurdish fighters. So, in other words, there are remaining proxy groups, remaining militant groups that aren't so pleased with Jolani getting in there. And I wonder if there's not a buzz about that they now believe Jolani was a Mossad asset or a CIA asset the entire time, which does appear to be the case. So that's not going so well. So the peace deal with the regime change in Syria, not so well. Israel, peace deal, we'll stop killing and attacking people. Yeah, that's not happening either. And now Netanyahu is back. The Western media propaganda tour continues, this time with Dr. Phil. And, I got to say, I like Dr. Phil. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good American. But he's got boomer brain, just like everybody else from that generation that think it's good right-wing conservatism. It's good Christian policy to support Israel. So they just can't break with that mindset. So a lot of people are giving Dr. Phil a hard time for this. I don't think Dr. Phil is a bad person. I think he's got boomer brain on this issue, and it is what it is. But here's Netanyahu. The American media tour continues because Netanyahu knows all that really matters is propagandizing the American people. I mean, Netanyahu's country is at war with 7 different countries, and there are protests, tens of thousands of people protesting Netanyahu in the streets every week. And there are criminal charges against Netanyahu in the ICC. There are criminal investigations against Netanyahu inside of Israel. And you know what he's doing? He's propagandizing the American people because he's the one that really runs this country, I guess. Or he wants to run the country, or he wants to continue to steal your money or keep you loyal to Israel. Okay. So here we go. Let's listen to what Netanyahu has to say with Dr. Phil, shall we? Because we haven't heard enough. We're all clamoring for more Netanyahu. That's what everybody wants. We're not sick of Netanyahu in Israel yet, so we want more.
They have to be disarmed. Gaza has to be demilitarized. And I think also de-radicalized, which is what happened in Germany and in Japan after you won World War II. You not only destroyed the military and governing capability of the Nazi Party or the imperialist regime in Japan, you also de-radicalized the population. You taught them that there's a possibility of a different life. You don't have to go out and commit, you have kamikaze bombers or suicide bombers and all that. You can have a different life. And look at Japan today. Look at Germany today. There is no Nazi army there, no Nazi government, and the same thing applies for Japan. That's what we have to do in Gaza. It starts with disarming Hamas. They have to be disarmed.
You know, the great irony here is that if there is a modern day Hitler, it is Benjamin Netanyahu. What were the Nazis? What is the big attack on the culture of Hitler and the Nazis? That they were an ethno-nationalist state. Well, what is Israel? It's an ethno-nationalist state. It is the most ethno-national imperialist expansionist state in the world. So it's the great irony of all of this. And we'll see what history says. We'll see how this all settles itself out. But that's the great irony here. So here's Netanyahu talking about the war that they're launching against you, the American people, online.
I think there are other and greater opportunities for expanding the Abraham Accords of Peace to other countries, not only Arab countries in the Middle East.
He says this as his country is bombing 7 countries and just killed 7 more people in Gaza.
But big Muslim countries outside the Middle East. And I think that's where it's going. And when people will see that we move from a war footing to a peace footing, I think some of that propaganda will be stymied. But in addition to that, I think you're right. We fought a 7-front war. There's an 8th front. And the 8th front is the battle for truth. The battle for truth against all these lies that are being disseminated in the social network. And that requires a big effort, which I think we have to, and there's only one thing you can do, the only way you can combat the lies, speak the truth.
Well, and I'm charging that machine gun nest every day in America, and it comes at a high price that I'm content, and I will pay that price every day proudly and with honor on behalf of Israel.
And there it is. So just move to Israel then. Do you want to be an American or do you want to be an Israeli? You're so loyal to Israel. You're going to fight for Israel. So go move there. Go be an Israeli. Abandon America. Renounce your citizenship. I'm sick of this crap. We got our own problems. I'm sick of this warmonger drenched in blood, steals our money, steals our future, lies to our people, tricks us into wars in the Middle East, tricks us into his holy war against Muslims and Arabs. But you know what? Hey, give credit where credit is due. The Israeli propaganda operation is probably the most successful we've seen in our lives. And they have captured an entire generation of Americans to be more loyal to Israel than America. They have. They have made Americans sacrifice their lives for the sake of Israel. They've made Americans give their money for the sake of Israel. And there's Netanyahu just up there bitch slapping them. Just up here, that damn right you're going to fight for Israel. Damn right I'm fighting wars, and the only reason I'm able to get away with it is because I know that you guys have my back. Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Netanyahu. Yes, sir, I'll fight for you every day. I'll fight for Israel every day, like a good American would. Yikes. Yikes. So what's the real threat, obviously? What's the real threat, guys?
The anti-Semitism in America and around the world is a very real threat that has to be dealt with. And this, do you think that October 7th gave people a sense of moral authority to express their anti-Semitism? It turned up so hockey stick.
Listen to how insane this is. And again, I don't think Dr. Phil is a bad person. He's been hit with 40 years of Israeli propaganda. This is a psychologically damaged man. I think he's a good man. I do. I think he's a good man. But he's a psychologically damaged man. He's been hit with 4 decades of Israel propaganda, and it's destroyed his brain. I mean, I cannot even believe what he just said. Listen to this again. See if we can get this going again. The moral authority. Yes, Israel has the moral high ground. They stood down on October 7th. Everybody knows it. They've killed 100,000 people since. They're bombing 7 countries right now. Women, children, doesn't matter. And you're going to talk about the moral authority, and you're standing with the guy that's the most immoral person in the world right now? Come on.
people a sense of moral authority to express their anti-Semitism? It turned up so hockey stick dramatically after October 7th.
Yeah, because Israel has killed 100,000 people, women and children, and they're bombing 7 countries right now. And all they do is propagandize us with it 24/7.
The world is a very real threat that has to be dealt with.
It's a very real threat. People having an idea, people talk, and it's not even anti-Semitism. See, that's the big lie. They consider being critical of Netanyahu anti-Semitism. They consider being critical of the Israeli government anti-Semitism. So you're not even being honest. This is totally dishonest. But again, I'm not even mad at Dr. Phil. All right, I'll stand up for Dr. Phil. This is a man who has brain damage. This is a man who has psychological and physical brain damage because he's been hit with Israeli propaganda for 40 years. So that's what this is.
Do you think that October 7th gave people a sense of moral authority to express their anti-Semitism? It turned up so hockey.
Oh, you don't like Israel killing innocent women and children? You're an anti-Semite. I mean, that's the equation here.
Stick dramatically after October 7th.
Well, because
No, after Israel killed innocent women and children. After they stood down. That's what did it. And then people are looking at that and they're saying, I don't want to fund this. I don't want to give Israel any more military aid, any more financial aid, because I don't support what their government is doing. Oh, that's anti-Semitic. No, it's not. So this is just boomer brainwashing, 4 decades of Israeli propaganda that have just destroyed their brains, folks. That's all it is. That's all it is. And not everybody of that generation is a victim of it. Okay, let's be clear. I'm not making a blanket statement, but Dr. Phil is an example. But that's what this is. This is total brain damage from psychological warfare against him for his entire life. That he can sit there with the biggest war criminal in the world and act like he's the victim. I mean, that is unreal.
The internet has been flooded by fake propaganda describing Israel as the aggressor instead of the country that's been aggressed upon, saying that falsely accusing us of genocide when we have sacrificed our soldiers in taking out terrorist places that we could have just carpet bombed and we didn't. We do everything in our power to
They literally did. I mean, folks, this is unreal. It's just unreal.
keep civilians out of harm's way, and Hamas did everything in their power to keep them in harm's way. They shoot people. When we tell Palestinian civilians, please get out of this neighborhood because we're coming in, Hamas shoots them if they want to come out.
It just sucks. It just sucks that this guy has more authority, more influence, more access to our president than we do. It just sucks. This liar, this criminal, this blood-drenched warmonger, this psychopath. Honestly, it's so demoralizing. It is so demoralizing. And really, that has a lot to do with this whole black pill thing going on. Do you have any idea how demoralizing it is as an American, as a Christian, to be told that Benjamin Netanyahu is our moral superior? To be told that we owe some alliance and loyalty to Israel and that they have the moral authority to claim these things? Do you have any idea how insulting, how offensive, and how demoralizing that is? Yeah, that's blackpilling. That's blackpilling. When the most wanted war criminal in the face of the world today, and we're told he's our moral authority. When the guy that's out here bombing 7 countries and killing 100,000 people that stands down on October 7th to do all of this, and we're told he's our moral authority. When the guy that's been lying to our Congress for 40 years about weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East that has led to our blood and treasure being sacrificed in the Middle East for the benefit of Israel, and we're told this is our moral authority. Yeah, that's pretty demoralizing. That's pretty blackpilling. That'll depress you. And then, to make it even worse, we're not even allowed to talk about it, or we're the bad guy, or we're an anti-Semite, or we're a hater, or we're a blackpiller, just for even talking about it, or mentioning it, or questioning it. Yeah, that's pretty demoralizing. That's pretty offensive. That's pretty black pilling. Oh, wow. Just wow. So, I think a lot of young generation Americans, myself and others, we're just sitting here and we're just like, I can't wait till these demons are gone. And I'm not wishing death. Let me be clear. I'm not wishing death upon anybody. Okay. I just want you guys out. I want you guys out of power. I want you out of our lives. You're sick. You are going to leave the world worse off than when you got here. And I hope that you are the last generation that does that. I really do. I hope that generation, I hope the Netanyahus of the world, I hope that you are the last generation of political leaders that leave your country and the world worse off than when you got here. Because that's what you've done. The Middle East is not safer today. The Middle East is not more peaceful today. It seems like Israel and Iran might be at war before the end of the month. Israel could be getting hit with strikes again before the end of the month. You'll have people back in bunkers. Don't worry, Netanyahu's son will be in a penthouse in Florida. He'll be fine. But the rest of the Israelis, they'll have to suffer for what Netanyahu has done, for whatever reason he's doing it. It's really sad. It's really depressing that we still have to deal with this creep. That we still have to deal with this psychotic freak. And then all of the people that push his propaganda and demand that we stay loyal to this foreign country. It's disgusting. You're all traitors. And that's how you will be remembered. And everybody sees it now. And all the good grace that you have earned over the years is all gone as soon as we realize that you were just doing it because you were a foreign asset and a foreign agent to try to deceive Americans. Here's the final statement from Dr. Phil on this, as if you aren't offended enough already.
I'm really interested in how he looks at this because this has been one of the longest wars they faced, and the cost has been really high politically, humanitarian-wise, and has taken a tremendous toll on him and the Israeli people, both domestically and internationally.
Oh, poor Netanyahu. Oh, wow. Oh, man. Sad. Really, really sad. So, all we can do is wait. These people won't be in power forever. These psychotic warmongers, these ethno-state superiority people won't be around forever. All I can hope, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if my generation will be any better. Who knows? Mamdani, AOC. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we got on the right. I guess Vance right now, maybe Paulina Luna. I don't know. I just hope our generation isn't like this. I really do. Honestly, it's disgusting. So we heard from James Fishback this week. He's running for governor of Florida. In Connecticut, Ryan Fazio is running for governor of Connecticut. He just recently had a campaign event. This gives me hope. This gives me hope for our generation, guys.
Sir, tonight you've touched on a bunch of issues that are particularly valued by Gen Z Republicans. One particularly I'd like to ask you, is foreign lobbying groups are a contentious issue with kids our age, whether it be college students or people coming out to the workforce. So I'd like to ask if the Fazio campaign will refuse any support from foreign interest groups like AIPAC or any other dedicated to furthering the interests of foreign governments, not American citizens.
I would never accept donation from any sort of foreign entity or citizen. We need to put Connecticut residents first and American citizens first, not any interest of any other foreign country first. Doesn't matter what that country is. I want all countries to succeed. as long as it doesn't interfere with American interests. But no, I would never take any sort of resources or support from any other foreign country or entity whatsoever.
It's on, folks. It's on. Now, the Democrats are going all in against Israel, all in against AIPAC for 2026. They've already made the decision. They're going all in. And I think it's going to be a good result for them. Politically, I think that it's going to lead to them having a lot of success in the midterms. The Republicans will be at least one or maybe two election cycles behind on this issue, but they're catching up too. They're catching up too. And you know, this is the big realization. And let's try to ground this for a second. Everybody admits that our country is going the wrong direction. Everybody admits that something seems really off. Something seems really corrupt. DC is corrupt. The economy, something is just not adding up. Why is it like this? We all recognize that. Now, I'm not saying it's one entity, a singular issue or any of that, but I mean, let's just put it like this. In my 36 years on this planet, I have never actually experienced America First policy. Never. Our politicians have sold us out to China. Our politicians have sold us out to Israel. Our politicians have sold us out to the military-industrial complex. They've sold us out to the pharmaceutical industrial complex. We have never had, in my life, and likely your life, you have never had politicians that actually try to benefit this country. You've never had America First politicians in your entire life. And so now we're realizing it. So there's hope on the horizon that even though the left has their issues, the right has their issues, at least they're loyal to America. Even if you don't like the policy or the ideology, at least we're loyal to America. At least we're thinking about America. At least we're not selling out to foreign countries. It gives me hope. Now, the problem is the sick freaks like Netanyahu, and I guess the Trump administration now, or Trump himself, they realize that this is happening. They realize that this revolution, this America First, America Only revolution is on. They realize that the American people have woken up and realize that our country has been sold to the highest bidder, whether it's in China or Israel or elsewhere. So now what are they going to do to stop it? Now, what are they going to do to get you back on the slave ship? What are they going to do to get you back on the Israel First slave ship? They're not just going to let this thing go. The empire will strike back. So the question is, how ugly is this going to get? Are they willing to start World War III? Probably. I guarantee you, Netanyahu and the Zionists are 100%. In case you haven't noticed, folks, the Zionists will do anything for Israel. Anything. Part of you has to respect it. Now, if our leaders are dumb enough or corrupt enough to sell us out to the Zionists, then that's on them, and then that's on us if we allow it to happen. I wish that Americans had some level of loyalty to America like the Zionists do for Israel. I wish we did. The Zionists will sacrifice their own mother for Israel. American politicians, they'll sell their own mother for Israel too. So what are they going to do as they realize they've lost the youth? Will they start killing people? Will they start a world war? Will they launch a false flag? Will they do all of the above? Because Netanyahu is in serious trouble, folks. Why do you think he's doing the propaganda rounds? Why do you think he's trying to address the American people more than he is people in the Middle East? He knows it's the only chance of salvation he has. His own people have turned on him. The Knesset has turned on him. He's wanted for war crimes in Israel and by the International Criminal Court. The only hope he has is Trump. The only hope he has is that America will save him. And we're not interested. But now Trump is. And so Trump is willing to sacrifice his entire legacy, it appears, for Netanyahu. Now, I would like to know, I don't know if we can verify this. I know that we do have postal workers that listen to this show. So maybe you guys can verify this. This was sent to all post office, United States Postal Service employees January 5th. So this was before any of the stuff in Minnesota happened. Subject, Postal Service employees continued to provide essential services. So basically this thing is talking about how there could be a big emergency coming, including civil unrest, and it's kind of addressing post office employees and postal workers that, hey, get ready for potentially some civil unrest, but we still have to do our job. Now, this was shared by the American truckers here. I know them. I consider them trustworthy, so I don't think they would put anything out that would be fake or that they wouldn't vet themselves. But I do know we have postal employees that listen to this show. So I'm wondering if you guys have seen anything with this or heard anything about this. I'll open the comments right now. You can share a comment today, tomorrow, call in. Because this, to me, says we're preparing for something. I mean, it looks like we're preparing for war, folks. It looks like Trump is preparing for war. And it looks like the United States Postal Service is preparing for civil unrest, too. And all of this is happening right out of the gates of 2026. And all of this is happening as they've realized now that they're going to lose the midterms and Israel is about to lose support from America forever. All of these things are certainly connected. So I'm just wondering if anybody can double verify this or triple verify this for me. Because this doesn't seem like a minor thing. This doesn't seem like a minor thing. So I'll monitor the comments. We'll take calls and see if anybody can confirm this. So Casey Push, we've been hearing about this. This is the race for Ohio governor. And I will tell you, now I'm interested in the race for Connecticut governor. So that's on my radar now. Casey has been on my radar for a while, but I will tell you, I've kind of felt some, I don't know if loyalty is the right word, but friendliness perhaps towards Vivek Ramaswamy, because he was one of the very few people in American politics that stood up for me when I became a speech prisoner. Vivek Ramaswamy was one of the few people that stood up for me and even mentioned me by name when I became a speech prisoner and reached out and showed support for me. So I'll never forget that from Vivek Ramaswamy. I'll never forget that. And, so again, I don't know if I'd say loyalty is the right word to use, but, I feel like I appreciate that and I'm going to respect that. So I haven't really gotten into the Ohio race because of that. And despite, the fair criticisms of Vivek and some of the things he said that I don't like, I've just felt like, if he was willing to stand up for me when so few would, I mean, not even Donald Trump will, but Vivek did, and he mentioned me by names and multiple times and reached out. So, I mean, I always felt like, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to respect that. So I've kind of just laid off the Ohio race because of that and just said, Vivek stood up for me, so I'm just not going to get involved here. But this thing is, the Ohio race is getting more interesting with Casey Push. And, I mean, this is about as Americana as it gets with Casey Push. A car and watch designer, father, husband, Buckeye Nation. And he's showing you how he's working on cars. He's an engineer. He likes building race cars, designing race cars. I mean, this is about as Americana as it gets. So, all right. I'm putting the Ohio race on my radar. I'm putting the Connecticut race for governor on my radar. We're going to be monitoring this. I don't know. I wouldn't call it loyalty to Vivek, but it's like, you have to understand, folks, when you're a dissident right-winger like me, put me in whatever box you want. Politicians aren't allowed to touch Owen Schroyer. They're not allowed to touch Owen Schroyer. It's taboo. It's dangerous. So the ones that do, I will always respect, and I'll always have a certain level of, again, I don't know if loyalty is the right word, but for lack of a better word, let's say loyalty. To people that are in the political world that are willing to talk to me and do it publicly and stand up for me when I'm a speech prisoner, I'll never forget that. I'll always respect that. So that's not something that I want to just spit on and step on, because then it makes it even more rare to get that kind of access. And I'm not an access guy, but it's like, okay, hey, you're willing to talk to me. I'm not going to let that stop me from saying what needs to be said, but it's like, I don't need to be that guy. But we're going to be watching. We're going to be watching Ohio now. We're going to be watching Connecticut now. We've been watching Florida for a while. And I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what happens with these races. Normally, you'd say, hey, the GOP is going to dominate. They're going to get what they want. Let's see. I wonder if it's going to be that easy for them this year. I do. We'll see. We shall see. All right. Spencer Pratt. Now, this is a guy I could get behind. And I think he's the real deal. He is now announced he's running for mayor of Los Angeles. I think Spencer Pratt is the real deal. I like what Spencer Pratt has been up to, especially after the wildfires. I think he's the real deal, guys. This could be our match to Mamdani on the right. Spencer Pratt. This could be our match to Mamdani on the right. He's got the charisma. He's got the swag. He relates to the people. I think he's real. I think he's ground level. I like Spencer Pratt. I'm going to be watching the LA mayor's race now. And I'm looking at Spencer Pratt and I'm thinking, all right, Spencer, what can we do here? He wins the LA mayor's race. Okay. You want to run for governor? He wins the governor's race. You want to run for president? Whoa, pump the brakes. All right, pumping the brakes. But I got to say, I'm thinking it. Here was his announcement that he's running for mayor.
That's why I am running for mayor. And let me be clear, this just isn't a campaign. This is a mission. And we are going to expose the system. We are going into every dark corner of LA politics and disinfecting this city with our light. And when we are done, LA is going to be camera ready again. That's why I am running for.
This is going to be an interesting one. Folks, that's in LA. A Republican candidate. That's a pretty nice rally. That's your answer to Mamdani. Let's see. We're going to be watching this. Did you guys hear about this? This is extremely sketchy. Now, we've already seen with these prediction markets how people are making huge bets like, oh, is the United States going to invade Venezuela? And then right before it happens, somebody makes a massive bet on these prediction markets. So there's clearly some insider situation happening here. And by the way, it just happened again with the U.S. invading Iran. So, but this is like when you're watching a football game and a team either scores a meaningless, field goal at the end of the game to cover, or a player steps out of bounds, to not cover. You see these things in the sports world and you wonder, is that a betting thing? So this is like, what are the odds, right? Today's White House press briefing had a 98% chance of running over 65 minutes until Caroline Leavitt abruptly ended it with just seconds to spare. Traders on the no side made 50x on that trade. Here it is. You tell me.
In November of last year. And so I would encourage everyone to take a look at the website. It's quite well done. And thank you all very much. It's great to be back with you.
Looks at the clock and runs off the stage right before the 65-minute mark. And the people that bet no in the prediction markets made 50x. You tell me. You tell me, folks. Same thing happened with the invasion of Venezuela. Same thing happening now with the invasion of Iran. That's a little odd. That's a little odd. All right. Let's go to the Super Chats. Let's go to the Super Chats, and we'll see if we have time for a couple phone calls when we get through these. Robert Bickerstaff, I agree with you, Owen, that this woman and Ashley Babbitt are very similar, but I could make a stronger argument that the lady in Minnesota was actually wielding a deadly weapon. It's very close. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a perfect parallel. I'm just, it's more of a generalization that this is now their Ashley Babbitt. And there are enough similarities that it equates. I'm not saying it's a perfect or equal parallel here. Obviously, I'd say Ashley Babbitt is obviously way more innocent than this lady. But, I could understand the other side. I could certainly understand the other side. And that's all I'm saying. And this is going to be their Ashley Babbitt. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a perfect parallel. I'm not saying that. Nowhere near. Ashley Babbitt was killed in cold blood, and that officer should have been punished for it. But you can say she shouldn't have been in the Capitol. She shouldn't have been climbing through the window, all of that stuff. Just like you can say that woman shouldn't have been in her car. She shouldn't have been driving. She shouldn't have been disobeying orders. She shouldn't have been blocking the road. So, again, I'm not saying they're perfect parallels. I'm certainly not standing up for the officer that killed Ashley Babbitt at all. He should have been charged for that. But let's try to keep ourselves grounded here, folks. Let's try to keep ourselves grounded here. And whether they're close parallels or not, it's going to end up being that. It's going to end up being that. And there are already protests again today, by the way. If they don't reopen the investigation at all, I will never vote for a Republican again. This is disgusting. Well, I'm not sure what investigation, since you said that at 3:30. What were we talking about in the first hour there? Was it the fraud or the Doge? I don't remember, but could be many things. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. Angel Silva, if you can't control your own country, how will you control Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, Cuba, and Greenland? Tech capability isn't in doubt, but operationally, how? I don't think they're thinking about that. As I said yesterday, I don't think this administration is thinking past a 24-hour time period. I think they're making decisions by the day, and then they're dealing with the results of those decisions in the next day. That's what I think is going on. But again, I just say we can't even get our own house in order. We can't even get rid of corruption in our own country, but we're supposed to do it in other countries. Yeah, I explain that. U.S. election years blame Mexico for their failures, never their own consumption. America uses 95% of global opioids with just 5% of the world population. Yeah, we're the most drugged up country in the world. But, we fake fought against the drugs coming in from Venezuela, a total lie. So, yeah, that's just part of the corruption of this administration. MPLS school canceled to increase protest turnout. Bingo. Tay in Florida. Bingo. They wanted more people protesting, and they wanted as much awareness and as much protest of this shooting as possible, so they canceled school. Bingo. Exactly. They never did it before. There's been mass shootings in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, mass shootings. There's shootings in Minnesota, the Twin Cities all the time. They never cancel school. But they did for this. Why? Because they wanted a turnout at the protests. You nailed it. Ben Johnson, Bondi shut down the Epstein release for him. Who else would? For Trump or for Netanyahu? Maybe for both. But that's how Bondi keeps her job, I guess. Gringo Tomato. All right. A Gringo Tomato. I like that. Preach it, Owen. Preach it. Well, we'll never stop. We'll never stop. They don't want Matt Gaetz to be attorney general, Tay in Florida. Yeah, I wonder, though, what could have been with Matt Gaetz? KO Surge. She's complicit. No excuses. They're all Israel first. I'm assuming that's about Bondi. Or maybe Bongino now. Bongino. Bongina. KO Surge. They got a foreign president, but not Epstein guys. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. PFF. Owen, this is an awful question to ask, but will leftists be less inclined to protest and or riot over the Renee Good because she is white? Yes. Yes. If this was a black person, then yes, they would be more inclined. If this was an illegal immigrant, they would be more inclined. But because it's just a white girl, they probably don't care. Now, apparently she's gay. She was in a lesbian marriage, but that's not going to be enough. But no, absolutely. If this was a black person, there would be a much bigger call for protest. If this was a Mexican or an illegal alien, there would be a much bigger push for these protests. So because it's just an American white mother, then yeah, the left is probably not so inclined. I think that's a fair observation. Pittsburgh bad. Dan's number one priority is Israel. Remember that hearing. He is a joke. His podcast mostly sucked. He talked to G more than the audience. So the hearing, I don't know about the hearing. Are you talking about when he was speaking to his wife and he said his number one concern is Israel? That's what he told his wife in I guess his wife was doing like a little podcast or video thing or whatever with him. She said, "What is your number one thing?" He said, "Israel, protection of Israel." So I don't know what that's about. Like, who even thinks like that? Like, what is that? Weird, man. Ohio Mitch 88. Bimbo administration is why we listen. Oh, my dear mother was offended by that. My own dear mother sent me a message saying, "You're offending women by calling it the Bimbo administration." Well, Mom, I'm sorry to say you're in the minority in that. I just call it as I see it. But don't worry, Mom. I don't feel that way about you. You're a hero to this audience, so it's okay. But that's why people listen. Sometimes I got to be a little rough around the edges, just a little bit. It's all right. Cutting edge. Yesterday, I mentioned to you about Bongino on YouTube. Was that in his chat? That apparently wasn't so supportive, didn't go so well. Like I said, folks, the fact that he went on that show and that was his first big interview, podcast, whatever, since leaving the FBI, and it basically flatlined. Bro, nobody was talking about it. Nobody. I'm in media. This is my wheelhouse. Nobody cared. It was a nothing. That's truly that's an incredible fall from grace. I gotta say. I wonder what's going to happen when the actual Bongino show comes back live. Because if yesterday is any indicator, it's going to flatline. And then what is the crash out going to be? Ana Paulina Luna is as Latina as the Mexican president. I'm going to leave that one. I'm not going to go in on I'm not going anti Ana Paulina Luna today. I think she's one of the better ones or even good ones that we have. So we'll just let that one lie. And she could probably win the award for number one something else in Congress. We're just going to stop. Robert Biggerstaff. When I see Kathy Hochul, I get a sudden urge to call and check in on my children. When I see Kathy Hochul, I get a sudden urge to call Ghostbusters. Celtic Gal. We love your show, Owen. Could you wish me a happy birthday, please? God bless you always. Charlene and Paul. Happy birthday, Charlene. Happy birthday. The fact that you're spending your birthday with us is meaningful. And it looks like since your super chat came in pounds that you're in Europe somewhere. So across the pond, celebrating your birthday with us at the Owen Report. Thank you. Thank you. Happy birthday. Hope it's a great one. Stay young forever. Greg McCormick. Both Ice Jonathan Ross and Renee Nicole Good were searched in Israel, Egypt, and Syria days before. Make that make sense. Are you serious? Let's be careful, Greg. Let's just be careful because people can dummy this stuff. Now, I'm not discounting that it could be real, but I just don't see, this one just doesn't make sense. I think this was an organic event, folks. I don't think this was some staged event. I don't. People can disagree. That's fine. I'm not telling you you're crazy if you believe that. So I'm not insulting you if you do think that this is some sort of a staged event. I don't. I think things happen. I think this is one of those times where things happen. Now, you could say this was staged, or you could say that this was the desired result of the left putting all of these protesters in the streets. They wanted this to happen. They wanted somebody to get killed by an ICE agent so that they could revamp their protests, their fundraising, and, make Trump out to be the bad guy and ICE out to be the bad guy and law enforcement out to be the bad guy again. So in that sense, I'd say, yes, this is a staged event in that they wanted this to happen. But as far as the isolated actual event, no, I think this was organic. I think that it was happening. Now, as far as these search results in Israel ahead of the Charlie Kirk thing, ahead of the Bondi Beach thing, all this other stuff where it's like, why are these search engine optimization results popping up in Israel right before these events happening? That's one of the stranger things. Now, that can easily be somebody dummying an IP address. And I don't know. There's all kinds of different weird stuff that people can do to even not just dummy an IP address, but even dummy and backdate an internet log. So it's like, can they even trick the SEOs into thinking that it happened at a different date? So I'm just kind of skeptical of all that stuff. Now, I'm as curious as you are, and I'm as skeptical as you are that this stuff keeps happening. But now when I see it about this, I'm a little like, this looks like something else now. This looks like some other propaganda now. Of course, sometimes you run propaganda on top of something else to throw people off the scent. So it's like maybe the one with the Charlie Kirk shooting could have been real, or maybe the one with the Bondi Beach or whatever, maybe that could have been real. So then you take something like this, you dummy an IP address, you dummy a date, and then you it's like, oh, see, it's everything. And then people think it's nothing. So that's crazy that that's happening again. That is just wild. I can't make sense of it. I can't. And I don't think anybody's trying to, which is it's a little weird too. Jose Navarro. Hey, Owen, do you think that part of the reason we are living every year in crazier and crazier times is because boomers are slowly losing their minds? Well, that's one way to put it. I don't know if it's that simple. I do think, though, that there is this rejection, this rebuke that the older generations, the old guard politically, are just refusing to let go. They're just refusing to let go of their power. They're refusing to let go of their agenda. And I'm afraid now they're just going for everything before they expire. And I don't even think they care about the damage done. I don't. And they've got so much money and so much power that they don't even think that there could be any negative consequences. They feel invincible. So that's one way of putting it. I don't think I would phrase it like that. But I think, directionally, I think directionally, yes. These people are lost in a world that doesn't exist, and they're in denial that the younger generation is going a completely different direction politically. And we're sitting here saying, look at the mess that you left us. Look at what your generation did to our country that you're handing over to us. And it's like you're clinging to this and you're making it even worse on your way out. Yeah, people don't like that. Someone tell Dr. Phil the flood's over. I don't know. Or maybe it's just beginning. Capo Mercs. How many times will it take for a guy in a suit and tie to lie to us? I don't have any hope in a politician. Well, you're not alone. You're not alone. Ken Rose, thumbs up. Thank you, Ken. Mitch Connor. Oh, and I've been seeing a lot of posts calling for a tax strike. I'd love to see it, but I think we need to take it further and commit financial scorched earth policy, mortgage, car payments, etc. Yeah. The tax strike stuff actually kind of seems to have died off recently. It was really big before New Year's, and then it was really big while the Minnesota fraud stuff was happening. but it seems to have kind of died off recently. You know, that's interesting. The problem is they'll definitely repossess your car. You know, the Fed added I think it was like 18 billion in liquidity from repossessions at the end of last year. It was the biggest added liquidity from repos ever, because people can't afford their car payments. They can't afford their credit card payments. They can't afford their house payments, all this stuff. So it's a sign of a bad economy. So that's a little different than a tax strike. I wonder what the threshold is for an involvement rate to make that successful. It's like, if 5% of Americans don't pay their taxes, will it work? If 10%, 20%, 50%, is there a threshold? How does this work? Is the IRS going to come after all of us? Will the Trump administration have our backs if we decide to do it? They'll probably call it anti-Semitic and punish you for anti-Semitism if you don't pay your taxes, just to really let you know who you work for. I just wish the Trump administration had our back. That's all. But I don't think the Trump administration has our back. The Trump administration, no, in fact, the Trump administration doesn't have our back. The Trump administration has Netanyahu's back. The Trump administration has the donor classes back, the foreign lobbies back, the special interests back. They don't have our back, folks. They don't. So if we did do a tax strike, I think they'd come after us. I think the Trump administration would come after us. I think they'd punish us. They'd call us bad Americans. Remember, Trump said, wearing a mask is patriotic. Getting your vax is patriotic. Fuck you. So, no, I don't think they'd have our back. I think they'd come after us. I think they'd come after us hard. So it'd be nice to have Trump, support or having our back. Or he could just cut the taxes, but that's not happening. The Gwee, 1776. What's your thoughts on midterms in 2028? Who is going to run for both sides? We need a true America First candidate. So 2026 midterms, I think the Democrats win. I think they win pretty big. And the only thing that could stop that, it would be good policy and good results from this administration. But the message is loud and clear. They're not interested. They don't care about you. They don't care about good policy. They don't care about good results. This is an administration for the donor class, the special interests, and the foreign interests. So they'll try to bully you and scare you to go vote Republican, but it's not going to work. So I see the Democrats winning. I see the Democrats going all in on anti-Israel, anti-AIPAC. The Republicans might be forced to respond in that regard. But I think there's going to be way too much that happens before 2028 for us to really get there. Because we're going to have to see how the Republicans respond to the midterm losses and to the Democrats pivoting to a party line of being anti-Israel if it ends up being successful for them. Because the Republicans are more loyal to Israel than they are to the American people, for the most part. So I don't see them just giving that up, but maybe they'll have to if they can't win an election. So I do think the Democrats win the House. They'll probably impeach Trump. And then, I don't know, 2028 is too far away. But I think Gavin Newsom is probably, I think a Newsom-Cortez ticket is probably leading the way for the Democrats at this point. For the Republicans, I just don't even know. I mean, Massey, Green, DeSantis, Vance. People talk about Rubio. I mean, these are the names you're probably going to hear. I don't think anybody from the Trump administration will be electable. But I think in the short term, I think the Democrats win in the midterms. I think they go hard against AIPAC. I think they force that into the mainstream. And if I don't know if they have the political savvy, but if they realize that the Republicans can't budge on that issue and that they can force it and then basically dominate for multiple election cycles on it, then they'll definitely lean in. They'll definitely lean in. But the Democrats are controlled by AIPAC as much as the Republicans are. So we'll have to see. Banner Freeborn. If we don't get deep state arrest for 2016 and 2020, the midterms are lost. You have some awesome people in your chat, by the way. All right, Banner Freeborn. Yeah, well, that's what's so strange. It's like, why is Trump unleashing against the American people that want to see justice for the illegal spying on him in 2016? Why is Trump upset for the American people that want to see justice for the people that stole the election from him in 2020? Why is Trump upset that we want to see justice for the people that have been trying to have him killed? It's like we're demanding these things because we thought this is what we were all on board for, and we have your back, and now you're telling us to shut up about it? What's up with that? But you're not going to get deep state arrests, so I don't think it matters. Big Ick 3K, thank you for the super chat. So there you go. I'll tell you what. I got some other odds and ends here in my stack. Let me hit these before we sign off, and maybe we'll double back if there's any new super chats. Trump posted this yesterday. For a very long time, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was the reward for working hard and doing the right thing. But now, because of the record high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress and by your COVID policies, the American dream is increasingly out of reach for far too many people, especially younger Americans. It is for that reason and much more that I am immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes, and I will be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. I will discuss this topic, including further housing and affordability proposals and many more, at my speech in Davos in 2 weeks. All right, let's see. That's a nice thing to tell us. That's a nice thing to recognize. Let's see if that develops into anything. Dave Ramsey. Now, obviously, Dave Ramsey, well known for a financial advice show. He was talking about this sports gambling phenomenon that is really going wild right now. Okay. So I think he had a caller ask about this. So listen to what Dave Ramsey said about this phenomenon.
The fastest growing addiction that is destroying young men in their 20s is online sports gambling. FanDuel is a portal to hell. DraftKings ain't king of nothing except their own pocketbook. And they're screwing an entire generation of young men because you don't win. That's why they can afford to buy ads. They're back to back to back to back to back ads every time you turn on a sporting event. They're spending billions of dollars. You know where they're getting that? It's out of your kid's freaking pocket because they're screwing an entire generation. This is evil stuff right here. The fastest growing addiction that is.
So, I'm at a bit of a crossroads because I can't fully disagree with what Ramsey is saying here, but I'm also not going to be a hypocrite and tell you that I don't like sports gambling. But okay, let's kind of evaluate what he says. Yeah, they spend millions of dollars on ad buys. Okay. And this is how I found this out. When I went back to St. Louis for the holidays, I live in Austin, Texas now. Gambling got legalized in Missouri. And so what used to have to happen if you lived in St. Louis, you'd have to drive across the river to East St. Louis, and they had these literally parking lots where people would drive across the river, park their car, make their bets, and then go back to St. Louis because it was gambling. It was legal in Illinois and not Missouri. So now it's legal in Missouri. So anyway, I got friends that like to gamble. So I go to St. Louis over break, and they're like, hey, gambling is legal here now. You got to get these apps. And I'm like, I'm not interested. I don't really want to. I've got my ways of scratching my gambling itch, and I don't need one of these apps. And I live in Texas, so I'm not going to be, And by the way, you can basically do sports gambling on any one of your financial apps in the quote unquote prediction markets. So anyway, if I've got an itch to bet on a game or something, or an inclination, whatever, I can scratch that itch. It's not really a big deal for me. But they say, no, you don't understand. There's free money. This is the craziest thing. So if you want to see how can they afford to do this? So I go to St. Louis, I get 4 gambling apps, and I get like $1,200. There's something about I get over $1,000 in free money. All I had to do was download the app, put $10. I think I put $50 in the 4 apps. I put $50 in these accounts, and I got over $1,000 in free bets. So it's like, this sounds too good to be true, right? Okay, well, I'll tell you what happened. I took that free money. So once you put the money in the account and then you make a $5 bet, a $10 bet, whatever, they immediately put $300 in your account. So that's where I'm getting the $1,200 number, because I think it was $300 in free bets or whatever. That seems to be the going rate. So I make a $5 bet, a $10 bet here, whatever. Each one of these apps, boom, $300. Now I will tell you, I bet on the Giants. Who were they playing that week? Was it the Titans, I think? I bet on the Giants I took all that free money and I bet on the Giants. So I basically bet like $1,200 on the Giants I think to cover. I think they were -3.5 against the Titans. And I bet like $1,200 on the Giants to cover. Well, I won my bet. So that was free money. I mean, that was literally like free money for me. Okay. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I can understand why people think it's a scam. But if you listen to what Ramsey says, it's like, yeah, if the gambling, if these sports books have millions of dollars to buy ads and money to just give you money to gamble for free, well, how are they making money? You can say the house always wins. You can say, well, there's a little bit of juice when you make a bet. You're paying a little bit of juice to the books. Are people just losing bets? Do people just bet and lose all the time and just keep betting? I guess that's true. I guess there's an addictive personality complex there. Maybe they're rigging games. Maybe that's how they do it. They rig games. That's another big one that is going to be unavoidable to talk about. Are they rigging games? But yeah, I think it's crazy. Now, you know, I'm a minimalist government type guy. If you want to bet, I don't think the government should be able to stop you. And quite frankly, I don't think the government should be able to tax you on your winnings either, which is what the Trump administration said. But that's because the gambling lobbies wanted him to do that. But it is wild. So I'm wondering, are these kids spending all their money on sports gambling? Is that really happening? I don't know. Some people are good at gambling, but usually most people are not. Is it really that bad, though? I'm genuinely curious. Is it really that bad? Dave Ramsey seems to think it is. But boy, oh boy, let me tell you, I was the biggest Giants fan you've ever seen in your life. For what was that, Sunday, December 26th or something like that? I was the biggest Giants fan. Jackson Dart and the Big Blue covered against the Titans. I got free money out of that deal. I feel guilty, but so it's like, if they're willing to give you free money, then they have to be making so much money off these losing bets. Hey, did you see this? Low frequency electromagnetic fields can degrade collagen, weaken tendons, and cause soft tissue damage at levels regulators call safe. We have a real world case study proving this. An NFL team whose practice facility sits next to a massive electrical substation. So this is the 49ers. There's an electrical substation here, and then there's their practice fields here, and then their stadium here. Now, the Niners have had the most soft tissue injuries in the league by a 4 times margin. And they get into the numbers here, Peter Cohen. So most teams have 2 of these injuries a year. The Niners have 8. And so he goes in, explains it all. He even had his meter measuring these radio waves, these frequencies, and it's off the charts. So boy, oh boy, are we not addressing this properly? Is this causing the Niners to have injuries? Do you live next to one of these substations or cell towers? Yeah, might be time to really start thinking about this stuff, you know? Might be time. All right. That's going to do it for today's transmission. I know you guys are really, really concerned about this. I know you guys have been following this development here. And many of you have been demanding even that I get a haircut. Many of you are demanding that I get a haircut. Some of you are demanding that I never cut my hair ever again. Well, maybe some of you will be pleasantly surprised when I go on air tomorrow, and I'll leave it at that. God bless and God speed. We'll see you tomorrow. 21-hour break. We'll see you tomorrow.